these roles. So we are working with staff that are, some elements of we are working with management members and exec members that are in acting capacities. Then I think in terms of second chair. Okay, Chair, I think at this point I'll hand over to Walter to talk through and address some of the questions on the branches, and then we'll pick up from there on again. Thank you.
Thank you, Anish. Honourable Chair and members and other invitees. I've taken note of the Honourable Member mentioning that we must take note of all the questions and provide detailed answers, and we will do so. We've just on the branch issue itself, we've accumulated, I think, 22 different questions to deal with various scenarios. And what I would like to do now is maybe just take 2 or 3 minutes and give the context and the overview of the process that we have taken and the mindset behind the branch rationalization, and commit to answer each individual question in detail in writing in due course. What we found at the branches for the post office was a crisis of relevance. The basic business of a branch, and this makes up probably 90% of all transactions, was one of 3 things. It was either MVL, which is motor vehicle licensing, and this is up until today still by far the largest revenue generating for the branch infrastructure, the retail side of the business. 2 second parts of the branch infrastructure was the assistance in the disbursement of grants, SASSA grants and other grants, and the third part of it was the support and branch infrastructure and reach for the Post Bank. Now, during the last 18 months, we've seen a material move away from the Post Bank, from the post office, and the level of transactions and support services that the branch network of the post office can provide the Post Bank has quite materially diminished, as well as the drive for a cashless environment and the catastrophe that the post office had around utilizing these large amounts of cash during the COVID era and subsequent to that. So what we have at the moment with regards to the branch infrastructure is effectively only MVL, and not all branches are equipped with that specific machine. Only a small portion, I think it's about 30%. I will give the exact detail in my written response. And only those branches truly have an opportunity to be in any way sustainable. To take a specific example to highlight the worst case scenario, we've got quite a big branch in terms of size of the branch, in terms of employees in the Carltonville area, in Carltonville, and that branch managed to make 35 Rand of turnover for a month. For the simple reason the branch don't have any products to sell, they don't have any services to provide. So we find ourselves in a very difficult situation where our main income to keep the branch network afloat comes out of more metro and affluent areas with regards to supplying services for the MVL side. But we also got a future-looking side to know that as we wean ourselves off this legacy business, which is now actually in competition with eNatus itself, we have to start identifying new services and products in order to generate revenue and sustainability. So in terms of the rationalization, yes, there was 1,143 branches, a lot of them very, very sort of not really functional in its current form. The IT infrastructure in the branches needs a desperate renewal. A vast amount of these branches do not have the ability to transact on a card basis, the POS system. I mean, I think all of us has got a story about going to a post office, trying to do something, and they send you either to go and draw cash, or in a whole host of circumstances, they send you to Postnet, just because the infrastructure can't carry the basic businesses that we do at the moment. So what we've done through this branch rationalization exercise is not ask how many branches can we cut. The first question that we did, and we've gone through a very, very detailed exercise, and these models are available for review by any of the members. is that we asked how many branches can we keep open on a sustainable basis, which means how many of the loss-making branches can we hook onto the profitable branches in order to break even, taking into account the assistance of the universal service obligation portion for the retail side. And we have considered a whole host of variables. We've considered whether the branch is leased or owned, whether the branch do have the ability to make revenue via the MVL system, whether the branch has got a 5-year history, because the other thing that we've also looked at is we've gone back 5 years. During the last 24, 36 months, a lot of our really profitable branches have found itself closed, like what happened in Kimberley and Uppington and those areas. So we can't just look at the recent 12 months. We had to go back 5 years and identify those branches. Apologies. So that gave us the opportunity to model the best case scenario for a sustainable branch infrastructure in the short term. It was always envisaged that as the branch and retail network look after itself, we do have the ability to start ramping up numbers in more relevant spaces like shopping mall kiosks, etc. But for this point, we looked at 600 was the number of branches. The reason why it increased to 647 is we have done our detailed rationalization. We've submitted that to management, to all levels of management in both the mail and the retail side, as well as the regions. And we've requested additional information. And we identified 47 areas where there was shortcoming in terms of equitable geographic spread for these branches, where we could clearly see that our model determined that there was unserviced areas. And those areas were then added back to the point to get to the 647. What we envisage in terms of the retail network is to completely overhaul our ability to provide services in order to generate sustainability and revenue. That is inclusive of being the recipients of e-commerce trade. And this is where the reach, both the physical and the digital side of the business sort of comes close in hand to hand, because the branches can play a very important part in the rural distribution of e-commerce services. But for that to happen, we have to have all of those potential and possible clients to be included in sort of a digital inclusivity drive. We have to ensure that these branches sign citizens of South Africa up on email, because we know for any platform these days that you want to register, if anything you want to do, you need an email. And if we don't equip our client base with emails, we cannot trade with our client base. And that is one of the things that we are developing at the moment, so that our tellers, as our acting CE mentioned, are multi-skilled. They can assist clients to walk in with any type of device, download a post office app to allow them to have access to zero-rated email and document services. Anyone that's got a matric certificate or a death certificate can walk into a branch where we can scan that and put that in the cloud through the data center. So the branches is almost envisaged to become the touch point between the digital and the physical world, and to take physical documentation and digitize them, and also with our printing facilities to take digital documentation and create physical one. There was another just question in terms of our rationalization about the difference and the low representation of branches in the Northern Cape. I mean, that is due to a very small portion of the population living in the Northern Cape, but it's also more with our strategy, where we found, and our acting CEO mentioned that, about there's not one case fits all, where we've seen that the Northern Cape and parts of the Free State has got a different sort of apartheid spatial planning, where the townships abut the towns. And what we've seen in areas like the eastern parts of the Eastern Cape and Natal is that's not the case. So we need to develop various business models in order to service those areas, different levels of mobility, different modes of mobility, and a different mix between physical representation and digital representation. We do have access to a vast network of connectivity, and we as the post office need to then develop the right products inside the branches in order to be able to roll these units out. But to just focus back on the rationalization part, It is 647 branches, which we believe is the exact right mix between historical profitability and maintaining that profitability, as well as keeping large enough representation in rural areas for us to, as the post office starts pivoting its business model from NVL towards true government and retail services through the branch network, we do have representation to start servicing those customers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Chair, I'm just bundling questions together because I want to hand over to the next speaker, Mandla, who will handle this part of the questioning. There were questions around skills transfer. Are we taking our people along? I think there were questions about people who were brought back after being retrenched, what allows this process? Another similar question around what is the level of staff morale and, will it keep SAPO alive? So these are, there was a question also around the competitiveness and the dedication of SAPO staff, which again talks to the staff morale. So we're bundling all of that together, and we'll allow Mandla to respond to the committee. Again, anything not responded to, we do commit to providing that in writing. Over to you, Mandla.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Anush, and good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to the committee members and everyone who's invited. Thank you for this opportunity to deal with a couple of questions, probably starting with the issue of the staff morale. When the BRP process started, I think about almost 2 years ago, we found that there were a lot of concern around the employees. There were a lot of concern around the employees because one of the issues they've raised, they have not received increases for the past 4 or 5 years. One of the issues that they've raised, they've not received adequate training. There was an issue around the challenges related to non-payment of some of the statutory deduction which related to your, like as we know, the SARS payment, the medical aid. There was also the issues around the Provident Fund not being paid to. We understand what management were doing at the time. They will only pay the net, not pay the overall contributions, even though on the pay slip it will reflect as if it was paid. So there were a lot of issues. We found people who were really down, and it was not only the staff, I think from management to everyone because of the challenges that were there. And things became a bit worse, Chair, when we had to go through the Section 189, because it also meant that some of the colleagues then they had to be let go. So you could understand why people could not feel aligned to where SAPO was going at the time. They could not understand the business rescue process. And we can reflect to the time past that, that means post Section 189, where there was a bit of stability. It was shown through various processes that we had to go through, which was the finalization of structures, placing people on different positions. I think just it's critical to mention this to the committee that when we did the placement of colleagues within the structure, they were it was only SAPO people that were appointed. We did not advertise externally. That means the internal skill was retained and people were given an opportunity to apply. As they applied, they were placed accordingly in different and various positions because as Anush has alluded to, we found most of positions, they had acting people. and they could not place people because of various reasons, including affordability at the time. So when we rationalized, we made sure that people were placed so that they can take accountability for the functions, of which I think post Section 189, Chair, we saw a different picture from the colleagues, including management and including the staff, because there was some sort of stability. There was direction between there was direction within SAPO, because they could see that where the business is getting to and what's the plan of the BRPs going forward with SAPO. They saw the BR plan that was approved and so on. They read it as well. Some of them, they could quote it for us. So there was proper engagement and people were a bit optimistic about the prospect. Of course, when they read the BR plan, they also saw that there was some funding that were going to come through to enable SAPO to go forward. So with all that being put together, it sort of give them optimistic. They were optimistic about the future and where SAPO was heading. To say that, Chair, things did change later on last year, probably not to the same level of the pre-Section 189 process earlier in 2024, because of the day zero. The uncertainty started again creeping in because the guys were not sure now what's happening. All of a sudden they thought everything was going well, but things changed. So I'm giving all this background, Chair, so that we understand what has been happening within the colleagues. And there's just that roller coaster move that is happening, because they are passionate. I've heard the committee members commenting about this as well, that when he visited the Durban branch, he saw people who loved SAPO, and I can attest to that. You can go to the mail centers, you can go everywhere. People are passionate about SAPO. They want to see SAPO succeeding. I think they just need that enabling hand to help them. So moral-wise, we have engaged on various interventions as well, just to assist the guys so that they don't only look at the blink side of things, but they also look at where SAPO is heading. Of course, the future of SAPO, it lies around digitalization, and we have tried and engaged with different stakeholders, knowing that SAPO does not have funds to finance certain intervention, and we had to go out and speak to your sitters and speak to our sister companies like your NEMISAs and so on, to see what can we do to uplift at least the confidence of our colleagues in terms of development and certain training, especially in the digitalization side of things. And I'm happy to inform the committee that that program is running very well. We started here in Gauteng late last year, and it has been moved to all the regions national. Of course, it's work in progress. It's not where we probably hope it should be, but we understand that we also have shortcomings within SAPO related to digital connectivities and so on. So those types of equipment does impact or affect the delivery of the training. However, I can assure the committee that on its own has really lifted the perspective of our colleagues, because they can see that there is proper development for them, there's opportunity, there's growth, which will enable them to tap into the next position, should there be available position, or the way of work of SAPO, of which that's where we are trying to get to, Chair, in the digitalization world. So that's part of some of the intervention that has been put in place. And another thing, just to deal with the scars and the challenges that our colleagues have been facing, we can just imagine how the colleagues have felt since 2020. From 2020, there was no increase. 2021, 2022, there were a lot of promises. There were no benefit, in such a way that some of the service providers had to suspend their the membership of some of the colleagues, because SAPO was not contributing over to to the service providers, like your medical schemes providers. So you can see that the guys were really down, and there were a lot of issues and scars that are happening within them and their families. So one of the other intervention which we believe is really critical is to deal with the employee well-being. Of course, we know we don't have funds to finance some of the intervention, but we are also driving the perspective of partnership as well to see how we can tap in where we can get these services and support without any cost to SAPO. So we are reaching out to different organizations just to provide those support, like your SADC, because it's a government entity. We are reaching out to your Department of Employment and Labor as well, because they've got various intervention that they do. So we are reaching out just to enhance the availability of services and support that our employees require, especially taking into consideration the challenges and the frustration that they face over the years. Yeah, these are just some of the few things that we are putting in place, and we are trying to drive employee engagement and to ensure that there's also participation in the future of SAPO from the employee perspective. So yeah, at a high level, Chair, those are some of the intervention that talks to the transfer of skills as well. I think one thing that noted Anush is the transfer of skill from the PR side. What has been established as well to ensure that the skills is transferred internally. There's each and every BRP secondee or someone who's responsible for a stream of some sort. There's always a twice C that works with that person from SAPO, so that the skills is transferred and they know exactly how to pick up things should the PR process come to an end in the near future. So basically, yeah, there's a couple of interventions, but at a high level, I thought let me just highlight this to deal with the issue of morale of where we are. And we believe that it's not where it's supposed to be. However, it's work in progress, and we believe that with proper support, we can reach where we probably need to see our people being happy and enjoying to come to work, not just as an obligation, but as something that they want to do to contribute to the future of SAPO. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mandla. Chair, we would like to proceed to answer the next two bundled areas of questions, if I could call it that. I'm assuming we still good for time. Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, it's back on. Thank you. Okay, so one of the questions from committee member, SASSA payment was most profitable business of SAPO. Post Bank is doing this. Is it a question of the mandate? That was on the one from one of the members. Related question from another member. SASSA cards conversion to black cards, was this a missed opportunity? Why were we unable to service the opportunity? The relationship with Post Bank, what is it? So we're gonna answer this. So the SASSA payments was always loss-making for the post office. That was one of the elements that when we got in as BRPs, we had to make an assessment and understand why this business was declining or waning away. We did confirm by working with management that yes, this in fact was always loss-making. In fact, we made a loss of 30 Rand per transaction. So in addition to this, this increased our cash and transit costs, our physical security costs. There were losses due to criminality because we're now handling a lot more cash at all the branches. And our risk profile in terms of our insurances, increased. That exposed us to the criminality of the country. So I trust that answers the question. And is our mandate now in question? And I think that's difficult for us to answer as BRPs. We do subscribe to it, that we've got a social mandate, and that's to provide postal and communication services to all South Africans at an affordable rate, regardless of where they live in South Africa. But we will always take guidance from the higher powers that informs policy or would question that. But from where we are as BRPs, it's difficult for us to respond. Then was the opportunity with the SASSA card a missed opportunity? This talks to the relationship with Post Bank. And I think, again, when we started off our roles as BRPs, one of the most critical and obvious elements was to talk to the Post Bank and its board, and which we duly did at the time, because we were very interested in formalizing the partnership. Extremely serious about that. We saw the synergies and the complementary aspects that existed. Yeah, unfortunately, can report that we've been trying to formalize SLAs. Unfortunately, till today, there are no SLAs formalized. It's been a very strained, difficult relationship. And there are elements in there that obviously we want to work out with the Post Bank. We do understand that they have their own mandate, their own board of directors, etc. But I think from a government-to-government business, and most of being sister entities, we do want and would like to promote a mutually beneficial relationship for both parties. Okay, thank you. I think then moving on to the next bundle areas of questions, and this comes to funding. Okay, just running through again the comments from the various committee members. The one point was, please provide clarity on the 150 million rand received by DCDT. Where is this coming from? What have we done to get the 3.8 billion was the other question. The next question, USO funding. What is this used for, and does it impact the 3.8 billion? The 150 million, are we going to make February, or are we going to make it to February? Another question, receiving a tranche of the 3.8 billion that may work. Did we inform National Treasury? What was National Treasury's response? So the question here, as I understand, is have we had a discussion to receive at least a tranche of the 3.8 billion and not the full 3.8 billion? So I think we're going to split up and respond to this. Just to be, from my perspective, and I think the DDG, as our shareholder representative, is here, and he can talk to where the 150 million is coming from. We cannot respond to that one. But just to clarify, the post office has always had the USO grant, and we've been very clear in our business rescue plan that that still needs to come through to the organization. So that's a very clear, distinct part of funding. The 2.4 billion that has been receipted, and we've accounted as to how that has been spent. The 3.8 billion is over and above those categories of funding. And again, it's been very clear in the business rescue plan in the application that the 3.8 billion has to come in without set off, without any deductions, because that's a separate tranche of funding. The 150 million rand that has been, we have received a commitment from our shareholder that 150 million of working capital will be made available to the organization, and we anticipate receiving that by 3rd of March 2025. Again, the DDG is here, he will respond. And are we going to make it to Feb, or where do we make it till? So the conversations that we held in October was to highlight that the entity is not out of the woods yet. We are running out of cash. In fact, our working capital is being eroded and eaten into by us not receiving the 3.8 billion. So at the time when we raised the flags in October, we had based it on the fact that we are continuing with the level of expenditure and supplies that we had to contract with. And we are still hopeful to get the 3.8 billion. Unfortunately, the money hasn't come in. It has forced us as BRPs to put the entity into preservation mode, where we put in various austerity measures. And that's how we're able now to stumble along until Feb. And with the 150 million in working capital, that will take us to March. And we are working very proactively with our shareholder. We do have a monthly monitoring meetings where the department, Department of Communications and Digital Technology, our shareholder, is present. BRP representatives are present. National Treasury is present. So we do take the advantage at those monthly monitoring meetings to raise the questions about when are we getting the 3.8 billion? Can we at least get a part of that? Unfortunately, we are not in a position to answer. National Treasury is in the best place to answer that. We would welcome any formal written response that shows us and commits to us, that tells the BRPs this is what we're getting. Because what that will allow us to do is remodel and see what we can do with the business with what we have, or what are we going to get. Thank you. Can I hand over to you, DDG?
Thank you very much, Anush, and thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. I guess mine is to really just explain the source or the origins of the 150 million. This is the amount which was originally allocated for our flagship project, the SA Connect, which we have received signaling from the implementing agencies that they are not going to be able to spend. So there was a risk that if they do not spend and we try to get the funds rolled over for the same purpose, that rollover request may not be successful and we may lose that funding to the fiscus. We were also advised by the National Treasury to consider and look into our budget and try and find some savings which Treasury was willing to approve for virement or reallocation towards the post office. I think I need to add that we know that the 150 million is a small fraction or a small percentage relative to the 3.8 billion. But in our view, every little cent now counts, really. And as part of the initiatives to support the post office, we have also facilitated that the BRPs and SAPO submit a temporary employer-employee relief scheme application to the Department of Employment and Labor and UIF for the support at least of the salary bill of the post office. If that is successful, and we are very hopeful that it will be, that will go a very long way towards covering the personnel cost of the post office up to, if we are very lucky, up to 75% of those costs. So that is again another way in which we are trying to support the post office as a way of moving forward until a resolution is reached around the bigger sums of funding that is required. I think then I have covered the source of the funding and where it comes from. What would it be utilized for? In our view, really, it is to sustain the operations of the post office going forward. There was a debate in the department as to whether we should utilize this fund towards reducing the statutory and payroll creditors dividend of 18 cents to the rand, but I think the prevailing view now is that it does not help to pay off those creditors whilst the post office ceases to operate. It is better that we try and negotiate with the creditors, perhaps to possibly defer the payment of the 18 cents to the rand, and that is the conversation we have started to have with the BRPs to start seeking negotiations with the creditors for the possible deferral of the 18 cents to the rand. If it were to be deferred by, say, a year or 12 months, I think that will give us sufficient breathing space to then explore these partnerships that we say we are looking for, because the partnerships also should contribute towards the 3.8 billion. So in the final analysis, really, the 3.8 billion will end up being a mesh of contribution from the department, the 150 million, the TERS, 75% subsidy for employees' cost, as well as the contributions from the partners. We believe that will drastically reduce the 3.8 billion to perhaps a manageable amount into the near future for budgeting purposes. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chair, just doing a time check with you again. I think we've got 3 minutes. Is it possible to respond to a last question from our side?
No problem.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I think the last thing we will respond to is these questions around partnerships. We get the questions often. And we've had unsolicited partnerships, 33 that's now gone to over 40 43, 44 unsolicited partnerships to date. And I think this is a quick response, to our approach to partnerships. We've created criteria, processes, robust processes that allow us to assess all of these unsolicited approaches. And just very simply, we were looking for partners that could immediately add to the financial and operational pressures of SAPO. In other words, can they make an immediate cash flow injection? Alternatively, can they contribute significantly to financial or operational benefits of the business, either through profit share or partnership? And has there been anything significant or material that will move the dial? From our assessment, unfortunately, none of those partnerships actually provided any material or significant benefit or immediate benefit. Then a related question was, well, what has the BRPs done, proactively? Was it just only unsolicited? The answer is no. We proactively also canvassed and looked for partners that could invest, share with us. Some quick examples based on the BRP's initiatives include, early on, international mail was not moving. And then we had to work through airlines, and we partnered with Ethiopian Airlines. That was our very first partnership. And all the international backlogs were cleared. We got mail moving again. We then partnered with the digital partner to launch our own digital e-communications platform. That's launched. It's building up. It has to build up scale. But what's good is that talks to our migration away from physical mail to the digital platform. So that there's a partnership there. I've earlier mentioned the data center migration. So these are the two initiatives to move towards the digital realm of our products. Another partnership was working with a property-related partner that allowed us to install cell phone masts on our own buildings. And yeah, again, it's not massive, but it's great because there's good potential there as well. Because it's our own buildings, it's space that's unused. The provider literally puts on a cell phone mast and we're collecting rental income. So that's another example of a solicited partnership that's been dealt with. Then in terms of actively engaging for funding, we have made inquiries of third-party funders. We have made inquiries unofficially with the likes of the PIC, just to understand their appetite and their timelines. At the time when we did we engaged with them informally to understand it, they mentioned to us it was a 1-year time frame from the time we engaged to the time they disbursed funding. So we couldn't really proceed on that because, again, we needed funding urgently. And it's very much a similar response in terms of engaging other funders where their governance processes from the time you initiate to getting a disbursement, that's even if they want to fund you. It's a very long lead time. So those are just some examples where we've proactively looked for or solicited partnerships. And we will continue. And I with the joint task team now that's been constituted by our shareholder together with National Treasury, we will proactively feed into that task team, and we're looking to really contribute because we also still do believe in partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Are we done? I think there's just one burning question. Can you appoint a board in the middle of a business rescue process? Can we just have that before we thank you for all your other responses?
Okay, Chair, we'll answer that. And one request from our interim CE, she would like to respond to one question as well, if that permits. Okay.
So a significant part of the strategy is built on government-to-government business. And the chair alluded to, we think we're entitled to government business because we're a government entity. We also know that there was an NT note that was issued during the administration to say that, government must do business with SAPO. The strategy was not designed around those premises. We understand, when we designed the strategy, we understood that government-to-government business, we need to have arm's length transactions, in the sense that if government had to go and get the same service from a commercial service provider, the pricing is equivalent or if not better, because we have economies of scale. We understand that our service delivery needs to be benchmarked to our commercial peers. Overall, even though it's a commercial transaction and an arm's length transaction, where we see the real savings is not in the SOEs in themselves, but rather in government having to duplicate effort and investments in the same types of service delivery, same types of infrastructure. That's where the real savings come in. We understand and we know, and maybe we didn't encapsulate it in our slide, that we need to upskill our staff so that they can deliver on a multi-service delivery. We know that that's an investment we need to make in our people, and we also know that we need to build our brand reputation to create the trust and to create the to create not just trust, but also that we want to be taken seriously about business. We don't want to drop service delivery within government. And Anush didn't allude to it because I didn't discuss it with it, but I think that if you, and this is me, I think that if you really want to be deliberate about government business, you need to hire a government development person that is able to open the doors and have the conversations in policy, in different ministries, because it's all very dissected and siloed. So you need that person who connects it all together and is able to offer an integrated approach and have those conversations. Otherwise, it's not going to get the traction. So I think that's an important investment that we need to make in SAPO. Thank you.
Apologies, Chair. Last response from my side, and Juanita is going to respond to your question about appointing directors. The question is around our business rescue fees. What are our business rescue fees? As at the end of January, the total business rescue fees was 196 million rand. If we contrast that to the savings and the debt write-off of approximately 10 billion rand, that's still just under 2% of the value that has been created. Thank you.
Maybe I must just thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe I can just add to that. It's just not business rescue fees, it's business rescue fees and expenses. And then on the question of the appointment of a board during business rescue, yes, it can be done in our view, and that's the legal position we have, that a board can be appointed, but the board must be appointed by the shareholder, and obviously we'll work with the shareholder to actually have, on our exit, a smooth transition to the board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to the business rescue practitioners, to SAPO, to the department for those responses. I'm sure it bears saying that there's a number of issues that have not been responded to yet. We did say at the beginning that there are issues that will have to be responded to in writing. Can I check, Honorable Makubele, is it an urgent matter or is it one of those that we can get in writing?
I'm not sure which is what, which category is going to come in writing, because we did not get that clarity. My concern is that we asked so many questions in both rounds. Now they've been clustered, things have not been responded to. We've got follow-up questions as well. So I think we didn't do justice perhaps not to respond to the first set and deal with it thoroughly, because a lot of the first set, we still have outstanding answers and follow-ups onto that. I'm not sure how you would propose in the committee that we deal with it, because not everything can be responded in writing. I mean, we need to engage and get clarity on some of the things.
Well noted, Honorable Makubela. Okay, I'm sure, I know that I take notes of your questions, and I think you would also have some of your questions. Unfortunately, time does not allow for dialogue and engagement. Can I please ask the members, because I saw all of you had notes, to just please hand over those to the advisory team so that they can write them in the way that you would wish that they are answered, and we get that response there. Honorable Souls? The mic, please, to...
Thank you, Chairperson. I would actually ask for your indulgence. I'd like to put it to the House that I think the BRPs has misled the House in terms of their position on the Act. And I'd like to engage them on it if you would allow. I think it's very important that we deal with that matter. So I wouldn't want mine to be, that's why I just specifically asked one question in 2 parts. And I wanted a direct answer, I got it. But now, in terms of follow-up, based on the response, I'm of the view we have been misled in that presentation on that part, and I'd like to engage them on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Honorable Salz, I get you. I mean, there's many things that we are also not quite happy with the responses. I think I would allow you that you make the point. You asked a question about the amendment of the Business Rescue Plan. Once it has been adopted, they referred to a section in the Companies Act. I don't want to quote the incorrect section. If you want to make the point that they've quoted the section incorrectly or their answer is unsatisfactory, I would afford you an opportunity to follow up and clarify that. But we really do not have time for a dialogue. I do think that we need more time with the BRPs, but we've also kept the next presentation waiting over an hour and a half. So I will give you that indulgence to indicate where you believe they've misled the House. Thank you.
Chairperson, I think this should be considered very serious in the following way. I'll piggyback on what my colleague said earlier. When she made her submissions based on the interpretation of what was presented, she was of the view that there cannot be amendments made. And it is the Act that says, or that gives the position, that no amendments can be made once a business rescue plan has been adopted and has commenced. That is the view. And it is the BRPs that has, the BRP that has put us into that position. I then wanted to understand, is that true? And the response was, my question was in 2 parts. One, does the Act say so explicitly? If it does, read it to us. Mr. Damans responded. Mr. Damans was clear now and said, he cannot give me or us any section within the Companies Act that explicitly says once a business rescue plan has been adopted and commenced, there cannot be amendments. So we agree that there is no such explicit position in the Act, right? So that's number one. So already we are now put in the view, no, it's not the Act that says so. So now it is the interpretation. It changes everything now. It's now the interpretation of the BRPs based on case law, said Mr. Damans. Now, I want to now deal with the second part, to say, let us now interrogate the case law. And it's not Mr. Damans that is of that position. He's being advised by the legal person. So the legal person should assist us in the interpretation that he has advised the BRPs, which in turn tells us you can't call for a material change. It's not allowed by the Act. That's misleading. But before I conclude fully that it's misleading and that they have misled us, I first want to just get clarity on Part B, if you would allow us to do that, Chair, and engage with the legal person, not Mr. Damans, because he's like us, he's been advised by the legal person. So I ask for your indulgence, please, Chair.
Honorable Souls, I also really love the study of jurisprudence, right? But I am mindful of where we are and what we want to achieve. So that discussion I will allow between the two of you. What I will ask you is, what is it that you want to amend? Because maybe that will get us somewhere quicker. The issue of the law is one issue. Is there a specific issue that you wanted amended in the BRP so we know to to what conclusion are we driving this conversation?
Chair, it's not even about what I want to amend. It's the fact that we were put under the impression that there is no, that the Act does not cater for amendment, no matter what it is. It's a material act of gross negligence to let us believe, as the Oversight Committee, in a presentation to say, guys, even if you think, I'm not saying I'm saying let's amend. I'm dealing with the fact that it was an intentional position to let us think there's no amendment legally that can take place. That's my problem. Now to settle it, not saying that we will amend, but at least when I want to leave here and at least feel like there's an option to do so. When we walked in here, the impression was there's no legal option to do so. So therefore, the second part, with your indulgence, Chair. May I?
Yes.
All right.
What is the second part B of your application?
Yes, Your Worship. I must state for the record, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a legal nothing. It is just my understanding of what I hear. All right, so please be nice. So I'd like to
In fact, we
confirm.
hold you to a higher standard than an attorney. You're a lawmaker.
You see
So,
that?
yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick confirmation. You say we now know that it's by your own interpretation, and the reason why you hold the position, it's because of case law. Your stance is backed by case law. That's what Mr. Diamond said. And then he quoted a case. I just want to make sure it's the one that I heard. Vantage Goldfields versus Akwamanzi. Is that the one? The appeal one. All right. Now, I have the judgment open here in front of me. Section 5 of that says, when it became apparent that the necessary funding for the adopted plans would not become available, very similar to what we're dealing with here, Akwamanzi engaged in discussions with Standard Bank with a view to acquiring the VGSA claim. Standard Bank was willing to cede this claim, and Akwamanzi agreed, and Standard Bank gave it to them. And they disposed of the claim. The appellant was not satisfied by that, Section 8 or part of 8, on the 20th of January, the BRPs intimated that the proposed amended business rescue plans for all the Vantage companies would be circulated shortly, after which a meeting would be convened to discuss and vote for plans. A few days later, however, they informed Akwamanzi they would not do that. Consequently, Akwamanzi then launched against them, and the court found in favor of Akwamanzi on the following: that he was considered an independent creditor, and so he had the right for Standard Bank to cede to him. So it's incorrect to say that you use that, but I know why you're using it. You are saying that because the court said to the BRPs, you are not allowed to unilaterally amend. You are now using that to say amendment is not necessary. But would you agree, based on the following, and then I close, Chair? The judgment said the adopted plan is not to be implemented because of lack of funding. A clause in a business rescue plan that provides for the unilateral amendment of the plan by the BRPs is contrary to the scheme of the Companies Act. At best, such a clause would only allow for amendments of an administrative nature that do not affect its substance. The replacement of the funders and funding model was not merely an administrative amendment, it was central to the plans. The BRPs were not entitled to amend the adopted plans in the manner that they did.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
let me just, I'm closing.
Please, yes.
I'm closing. What the BRPs did in this case that they are using is they amended the plans. Number one, what it shows is you can amend the plans. The court was not stopping them from amending the plans. The court was stopping them from amending the plans in the way that they did unilaterally. In other words, section 152 and 153 is the process that they had to use to amend. So I'm saying that I'm of the position that the BRPs has misled us and that amendment can be done, but the way it must be done is what case law says must be done in the same way as it was done initially. The problem here was that they didn't do it in that way. They unilaterally changed the plans without informing,
Thank you, Honorable
and
Source.
therefore
Thank you, Honorable Source. We have
it is
heard
incorrect.
you perfectly. Now it would be unfair that I close this without giving you a right of reply. Please do not follow Honorable Soul's example. I think you are entitled to a right of reply on that.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, members. Thank you for the question. It's always an interesting question about amending of a business rescue plan. You had the case correct. It was the right case. But I think first let's go to the statement in the presentation. The presentation says the Act does not provide for the amendment of an adopted business rescue plan. Now that is so. You can read chapter 6 100 times. You will never ever find a provision for the amendment of a plan. So what is contained in the presentation is correct. And then the question is, the way that you would phrase it is, but you know, the Act doesn't explicitly say that you can't do it. Now, the leading case on the interpretation of Chapter 6 is the Shiva uranium case. In the Constitutional Court, there, Judge Rogers said that you can only in specific extreme circumstances read something into the Act. Otherwise, you must interpret the Act as it is. And if it's not provided for in the Act, then you can't read it in. So that's the second point. And then the last one is always important to read a case until the end, because the parties were successful on appeal. So what the High Court said was overturned in the SCA. And in paragraph 24, the judgment reads that practitioners cannot improve legislation by providing measures or remedies that the statutory enactments do not afford merely because they find themselves in a predicament. And then he quotes a famous case, the Kransfontein Beleggings case, where he says the court stated that the only plan which practitioners can implement is one adopted by creditors in accordance with Section 152 of the Companies Act, and that the court has no power to foist on creditors a plan which they have not discussed and voted on at such meeting. And then it concludes that paragraph by saying that in the Boyson's case, the court held that there is simply no room for a business rescue practitioner to reserve for himself the right to amend a business rescue plan. So it's always important to read the case until the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, Mr. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Faneca. Honorable members, we really have to move from this point.
And I do sympathize, understand, Chair, where you're coming from. The challenge that we also have is that we are sent here by constituencies who sent us with specific things to get answers. We have asked the questions, they responded, some they didn't respond, and now we have follow-ups on what they responded. We need to get answers. Otherwise, we should not have done this site visit. We should have just sent letters. But we are here for a specific reason. I understand the time, but I just feel that the rushing of the actual discussion does not enable me to go back and report. because we just need time. There are critical things that have been raised here, which determine how we support this process, which is an important process, you know, to get the 3.8 billion, to get this entity turned around. But it's impossible if we can't get through what we came here for oversight for. Sorry, Chair, to do this, but that's my view.
Chair.
I haven't noted you, Honorable Salt.
Okay.
I noted Subrata.
Chairperson, I'm of the view that if we open the program up for further discussion, we are going to encroach into the staff that we want to engage with. And I think we need to be mindful of the rights of our staff. If we have a late start, it will be a late finish. How they're going to travel back, we should also be. And I think if we begin the conversation, then I raised about 20 questions, I would seek my right. And I think so would all other members here. Suffice it is to say that I agree with the honorable members that we haven't been dealt with adequately in the questions I asked, critically probing accounting questions that question the feasibility and adds, you know, it hasn't been responded. So my expectation is that it will be responded in writing. So I wouldn't dare rush it and get a half-baked answer. Rather, I will hold the BRP accountable to the questions that we have raised. So I would move, Chairperson, in the interest of the staff that are waiting to engage with us, that we proceed with the program. Otherwise, we will delay it indefinitely to their prejudice, unfortunately. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Sols, are you still on this point?
Chair, out of respect to you, I will close on the matter. But if you'd allow me to just ask the last question and then I'm done. I just want to know. I just want to know. This is what I want to know. And it's for the sake of the public. You can't say to me that I can't do this unless the chair allows.
Honorable Sols.
Yes. But I mean on my part. I'm just
Okay.
asking, can I
Honorable
just get
Sols.
clarity here to say, are we being advised that, and I just want the answer to this, are we being advised that based on the Act and based on case law, that an adopted and an amended business rescue plan cannot be amended?
Okay. I see Honorable Bodlane has got a hand up. I want to propose, I'll give you a chance, Honorable Bodlane. As a half-gap measure, I don't know if there's such a word to this, we can schedule another follow-up session with the BRPs where you feel that there are issues that you would have wished that you had followed up on or questions that have not been answered. We just do not do it at this present moment because we made commitments, I think, as Honorable Subrati is saying, to people who are now waiting. So I'm not saying there's any follow-up that is not important. I'm not saying that questions have been answered, but we're just trying to manage the position that we are in right now. Would that be acceptable, members? Honorable Bodlane, I noted you.
Chair, just wanted to say we are also not happy with the answers that we have received, but just to say to colleagues, there's other mechanisms that we can use to do follow-up questions. We had hoped to get the most out of this, but we are where we are. So there's other mechanisms that we can use. There's questions to the minister, there's questions to the department, there's oral questions. Maybe let's also consider those avenues so that we get more clarity in terms of the questions that we used. But just like Honorable Makubela, we also wanted to put it on record that not all our questions were answered. But I propose that we move.
Thank you. Honorable members, I'm not in any way trying to gag you from speaking. I mean, as I'm saying, all of us have issues that we wish we could interrogate. I respect that. I also respect that the lack of clarity on some issues makes it very difficult to take a position on some of the issues, Honorable Makubela, as you are saying. So thank you, Honorable Bodlane, on additional measures, but I'm also going to request the Secretariat, then when we look at the program, we look at when we've done it before when we were not satisfied, that we've managed to complete the business of the day to schedule a follow-up that is convenient for everybody. Okay, so I'm not even going to summarize what just happened here. I think we all saw what just happened here. Except to say to the BRPs, we have noted that we are maybe a little bit further than we were in our last interaction. The members at this point, I don't think collectively are expressing an opinion. They've commended the work that has been done in certain areas. There's obviously big issues that still require a response, especially around, firstly, the issues Honorable Souls is raising, the issues about what your intention is about the property portfolio, especially around the people issues, especially there's so many, how viable this business model is, you know, which scenario, the 1.8 billion, the 1 billion, the 3.8 billion, how do you come to that? What DDG Shelembe has been saying with regards to their posture as the department in relation to what the BRPs want, the appointment processes around the CEO, the CFO, and ultimately maybe the board, the executive makeup as a whole. Those are still some of the issues that are being raised. So there's a lot, and I think we will also try and guide in terms of the next conversation. When we have that follow-up, I think maybe we would need to start off with you continuing with some of the areas that you couldn't respond on. Then the honorable members would then have an opportunity to engage. The last presentation that we are going to receive for the day, as I thank everybody who just participated in this last discussion, is it says on the agenda the unions and non-unionized staff reps. I'm not sure, Mr. Ngoma, if they are here already. Yes. Okay. Can we have a microphone? I'm sorry, ma'am. Could you please introduce yourself? And as you do so, please be advised that this is not normally procedure in a parliamentary setting that we would take questions, but will allow that you raise the issue that you want. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm representing the ICT Chamber on persons with disabilities, but specifically the blindness sector. I'm with the World Blind Union. I'm also the African Union for the Blind. I'm also the South African National Council for the Blind. I'm an office bearer there, and I'm the National Executive Director for Tape Aids for the Blind. We are working with ICASA on this matter, which I just wanted to alert you to, in that the Post Office is no longer in compliance with the United Nations Convention on the Universal Postal Union's requirement for free literature for the blind. That's now for literature as well as assistive devices. The UN has said that the rights rapporteur can sanction South Africa, which would mean it would be very nice that you got partnerships with international posts, but that would all be closed off. So South Africa, if we are sanctioned, the last time we were sanctioned was in 1964, which was because of the apartheid government. We were then reinstated in 1994 with the UPU. And in 2012, the United Nations Convention in Qatar with the UPU was they added assistive devices, which means devices that blind people need from overseas are sent everywhere else in the world, but because we don't have a functioning post office, we can't do that. Now, there are 2 libraries for the blind in South Africa. One is in Durban, and that's Tape Aids for the Blind, and the central distribution, postal central distribution, closed down. So we were sending 2,500 talking books, which have been converted into from print into audio a day, and the post office was coming with their big roller retainers. So prior to COVID, we were in compliance. Now, because they closed down the distribution center and they don't have any of their trucks, they were all repossessed. The personal person who worked at the distribution center, which had been closed down, came in their car once a week and took a few thousand for the whole week. Now we're down to nothing. So, and then on return, the post office would deliver back to us. So that was 5,000 units a day. Now there is nothing. So we are in breach of compliance with that convention. I don't want to alert the rapporteur because we are working with the compliance Postal Conveyance Committee of ICASA. We have made numerous submissions, also with the National Council of Provinces. We've made numerous submissions, but I just want to alert the party that there might be nice things that you're doing, and especially internationally, but it will all be to no avail because of the failure to meet that compliance. So that's all I wanted to alert. I don't want to unpack all of the various things. One of the things, obviously, was also that we're working with ICASA, the regulator, on is converting the 4-digit code to a 6 to 8-digit code, because with that extra granulation, we can deliver in rural as well as peri-urban and other areas, which would also benefit e-commerce and your delivery of groceries and everything else, where it's all by GPS, and it also then assists the whole digital shift migration that post office is doing. There are lots of things that we are working with the ICASA Mail Conveyance Committee on, but I do think that your parliamentary committee needs to be alerted to this very serious potential issue. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming. Maybe let me just explain the convention. Nobody leaves thinking that parliamentarians don't want to engage. You know, when we have sessions or oversight, we generally have them open. I think that's because it was focused in this manner is one of the reasons why I would say that it's not convention. But I understand, and I'm told that there's other people who want to engage with us who are here as well, which I think will let them in. But what I wanted to say, I was looking at the chairperson of ICASA, that when we schedule this follow-up, can you also speak to us on the post office's compliance with their license conditions, including some of the, I don't know, DG Shelembe, if some of the international treaties that fall necessarily perhaps outside of ICASA, and then engage with the ICT chamber on these so that the post office is able to also respond and speak to some of those issues. Sorry, Honorable Subrata, you had your hand up? Sorry, ma'am, would that be in order? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, earlier during our recess, members were alerted by the content advisors that there was a group of, I think, retrenched employees of the post office had converged on the premises, and they are seeking an audience with the portfolio committee. So myself and Honorable Matafa engaged them together. We're there, and we engaged them together with the content advisors, and we said that we'll bring it up in this segment when it comes up on the agenda when we're addressing issues of staff. So these are, I've been informed that these are staff that have been retrenched of the post office. They want to have an audience with the portfolio committee, and we did indicate to them to wait till about 4 o'clock when this segment takes place, and we would appreciate if they're given that opportunity.
Honorable members, you have a program of the portfolio committee. I need to put it to you that we would then need to take an additional engagement that we did not have on the agenda. So I want to put it to the House. Our agenda says unions and non-unionized reps, which means that we're speaking to representatives. From what I'm hearing Honorable Subrati say, these are the people who would have been displaced by the retrenchment you are saying. Can I check with the honorable members if you would indulge them to also come in after we've received the union presentation, so we have a full sense of the issues. Honorable Shongwe. Thank you. Honorable Bodlane.
I would allow that, Chair. Thank you.
Any other hands, views? Can I take it it's the feeling of the House?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, all right. So thank you. Is it just you, Mr. Rupal, or the joint practitioners want a joint apology to leave? Thank you. Thank you very much. We do appreciate you engaging with us today. May I ask the Secretary to bring in whoever needs to come in now? But thank you. We will be in touch. You have a last word. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Good afternoon, Mr. Ngoma. Can we have order, please? Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon. If we can start. Maybe let me start off by apologizing, Honorable Bodlani, that we ran a little bit later than we thought we would. So your patience is truly appreciated. My name is Kusela Diko. I'm the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. With me is the committee members. On my immediate left is Honorable Sitole. Next to him is Honorable Elisha. Next to her is Honorable Subrathi. Next to him, Honorable Matafa. Next to him, Honorable Bodlani. Next to her, Honorable Vilagazi. Next to him, Honorable Makubele. Behind her, Honorable Shongwe. And then finally, next to Honorable former chairperson of SAPO. I can see her greeting. Honorable Souls is seated next to Honorable Makubel. So thank you very much. I am not sure, we were not given much information about the delegation that has just joined us. So I will hand over to yourselves, maybe to introduce your delegation, and then I would believe set out the issues that you would wish to bring to the attention of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much, sir. I know unions to normally have a leader. Now
it's fine, Jen. My name is Kodisa Mbokaba. I come from Dipaku. We represent SAPU and Dipaku acting jointly, which constitute the majority trade unions in post office, meaning we represent 50% plus one of the workers that are in post office at the moment. With me, it's Nathan Bauer. I think he'll introduce himself. The Comrade Sani from the non-unionized. But I'm with the leadership collective from the two unions. The president of the PACU, Comrade Jerry Khodu, is here. On his left, which is on his right, which is, is Comrade, the General Secretary, Comrade Levi Zwane. On the extreme hand is the General Secretary of SAPU, Comrade David Mangena. And next to him is his regional chairperson, Comrade Tabiso. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my comrade, fellow trade unionists whom I know for a very long time. I'm Nathan Bowers. I am the National Bargaining Coordinator for the Communication Workers Union. And I am joined by Comrade Mzobe, who is the full-time shop steward for South African Post Office in Gauteng province. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sani Mabir. I'm representing the management TCTC non-unionized. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Can we just start again with the introductions? I think it went quite quickly.
Okay.
So, Budgodisang, you said you were from Dipaku.
Democratic Postal.
Democratic Postal.
Communications Union.
Okay. Then
and
you said
SAPU,
SAPU.
South African Postal Workers Union.
Okay.
In short, SAPU.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the two gentlemen, you said you are reps of the non-unionized. Am I correct? CWU.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Communications Workers Union. Yes, sir.
Yes, and I'm from the management team, TCTC non-unionized.
What's TCTT? Please do forgive us. We've only interacted with CWU. So TC?
TCTC. We didn't have a union as such previously. We used to take on the majority, but then as time went, we segregated. It's total cost to company, and we don't fall under the ambit of the recognized union as such. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, I'm sure the members are going to ask this just for clarity as well. So the two recognized unions in the post office, or there's three recognized unions in the post office, am I correct? Being DIPACU, SAPU, and CWU. Is that correct?
It's SAPU and DIPACU acting jointly, constituting a majority. I think that part must be underlined, that SAPU and DIPACU are recognized jointly, and they represent 50% plus one of the workers in post office, and the rest are represented by others.
CWU?
Yeah, we are the recognized union. We are recognized in the South African Post Office. We have members there. You've seen us on the streets often, and so on. We are known, the CWU.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, that one of our friend. So, I think the colleagues that we spoke about that we would be engaging after our engagement with the union. You're welcomed, colleagues. Okay, so members well understood who's who in the room. Thank you. Esteemed organized labor, may I hand over to you? Or maybe let us start to say that as a portfolio committee, you would obviously understand our work and our mandate as Parliament, which really is to be elected representatives who would at all times seek to ensure that we act in the interests of the people who elected us. That is all people. We exercise executive oversight over the work of government. We ensure public participation in the processes of Parliament, but also giving a voice to people in the work of government. And then finally, we're responsible for lawmaking, development of legislation. So we would have come to SAPO because over a course of many months since we got into office, we've realized that there are severe problems and challenges within SAPO, and we needed to get a proper understanding through engagement as we've been doing with the business rescue practitioners and the executive. We've raised with them a number of issues that we have had, issues that would have stemmed even from the rationalization process that would have cut the number of branches, the Section 189 process, and what they have been speaking to of late around the financial injection that they require of 3.8 billion rand, which, as you know, we held a contra-review that they cannot be seeking such a bailout without putting forward a strategy around future-proofing for the post office. So today's meeting really considered some of those issues. We had an in-depth discussion around, well, let me not say in-depth because we did not conclude our discussions, but we obviously spoke to some of the staffing matters, seeking to understand what is happening with the organization at present. The responses that we got would obviously not be as detailed as what you would provide. Now, on the agenda, we requested an engagement with yourselves. I think when the committee would have reached out to you was to say that we are looking for an appreciation from the perspective of the unions on how you understand the situation within this institution, what it is that you think needs to be done, and also, most importantly, any interventions that you are looking for from Parliament to also be able to advocate on your behalf with government. So with that being said, I don't know if I hand over to you again, Mr. Kodisang. Thank you. You may proceed in whichever order you are comfortable with. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. We are thankful to be called here before you, and it has been some time that we wanted to look you into the eyes, the representatives of the people. I have also voted in the last election, so you are also my representatives. Now, let us say in the beginning, we are very unhappy as the workers in this government. We're extremely unhappy in this government, and we will explain why we're unhappy in this government. Now, we will also explain that there are some unhappiness that we have with the BRPs as well. And the communities where we come from are actually angry at all of you and your leaders that serves even in the cabinet, the government of national unity. Now, let us first say, as the Communication Workers Union, we were always in the forefront around the legacy issues of the post office. South African Post Office, one of the most corrupt, most mismanaged SOEs in the history of this country. It was the Communication Workers Union in 2010 when we marched on the Public Protector's Office to say, now you will investigate these corrupt people. Those people who are undermining the mandate of the South African Post Office as contained in the Post Office Act. Now, as things continued over many administrations, it became worse and worse. There was no improvement, no turnaround, and we don't even want to say here what the press has already said about corruption in this country, especially within this entity that we're overseeing at this present moment. Now, when we came to say to the post office that if you don't intervene in the post office will go down. The post office will collapse. And what happened? Exactly the very same thing that we warned. The CWU warned several administrations. The CWU warned the alliance. The CW warned political parties who are sitting here. We warned you over years that this is where we're going to find ourselves. And then what happened? They couldn't pay the creditors. Now, when you can't pay creditors, it becomes a serious problem. So because we could not pay the creditors, there was then a provisional liquidation brought into the post office. Provisional liquidation brought by who? Two companies. It is actually property companies. Now, by the time the final liquidation hearing was held in the High Court, a ANC minister, Gungubele, my apologies, what? Gungubele, Mondle, Comrade Mondle, my comrade Mondle, in a court of law, a high court, in front of a judge, guaranteed 4.8 billion rand to sustain the business rescue plan. Now, I'm going to cross out with the chairperson of the portfolio committee often in my input. Now, we were taken very much aback when members of parliament don't understand what is actually happening in the post office. Members of parliament have no idea what is actually going down, because the business rescue plan is the plan. I'm not sure what this portfolio committee is looking for. What plan are we looking for in this committee? The plan is the business rescue plan. And when the business rescue plan was agreed upon, the 4.8 billion was part of it. The post office can never be modernized. The post office operations can never be sustained. The post office can never become the post office of tomorrow if the 4.8 billion is not forthcoming. And where was it promised? It was promised in the court of law. What does it say to us? When last week there was a statement by the minister's spokesperson to say they are redirecting funds from some project of government, 170 million or 150 million. I saw it even now. The department just released it, that the finance department has given us what? 170 million. 170 million. 150 million. We did the 150 million is but a tip of the iceberg in relation to, Chairperson, the rolling out of the plan. The rolling out of the plan can even bring back retrenched workers. We need a 4.8 billion rand to roll out the business rescue plan. Now, how can that be confusing? It was reported widely in the media last year. Widely. In fact, the media reported around the cabinet that agreed to the 4.8 billion. 3.8 billion. These billions. 3.8 billion, leader. They owe us 3.8 billion. The people of South Africa, they went to promise in cabinet. They went to promise in cabinet. They promised. The president was there. Who is above the law? And we are there. We are there now. Who is above the law? The portfolio committee, the cabinet, members of parliament. When you tell our communities, when you go and ask for our vote, you promise us how many things you promise us. You promise post office workers the world. Now, we are sitting on a ticking time bomb, and all our honorable MPs can tell us here is that, you know what, you get 170 million. We are saying to all parties here, whether you're from the ANC, next year it will be the Communist Party, might be next year, whether you're from the ANC, whether you're from the EFF, whether you're from the Freedom Front, whether you're from the DA, whether you're from Mkonto, Wisizwe, we are asking your assistance. You have failed us in oversight. You have failed us in oversight over many administrations. Now we are in the administration of the government of national unity. We are in that administration now. You dare not fail us on this 4.8 billion. We are not saying to you, the 3.8 billion, we're not saying to you, give it to us now. Sit down with us as organized labor and BRP. Why should we not be part of BRP meetings with you? Why not? Why not? We are important institution in society. We are we have got a legacy of liberating this country. We are written in the ILO. We are very important people. We need to be part and parcel of these talks of rescuing the post office. Not only for the communities, but for the workers. Now, what are we saying as the CW? We are talking on the shop floor, and we'll come with suggestions at the end of it. But what are we saying? We are saying we have come to portfolio committees in the past. You can see we are very familiar with you. We've come to portfolio committees in the past. We've met with the president himself in union buildings as the CW leadership. We met with the president of the ANC and of the country around South African Post Office, and of course other entities, but especially South African Post Office. We have put forward many proposals in relation to saving this entity. Now this entity has got not only a value in terms of goods and services that can be moved because of its huge footprint, but it's got a huge fundamental memories. I can remember when I was sub A, grade 1. I had a post office saving book. I remember going with my gogo to the post office. I remember now when I was in Limpopo, a gogo crying for her parcels because there is no post office there where she is. There was post offices. Now, we are coming to you as the portfolio committee. In my understanding and in the understanding of the CWU, the executive is accountable to you. That minister is accountable to you. We can't say because there's now a GNU, we forgot what happened last year when the minister, who is now the deputy minister, made those promises in a court of law. You can't say because now we got the GNU. No, it doesn't work that way. We've read books also. We've also studied. We know these things. Our fundamental thing is, You can't come and say 150 million. What is 150 million going to do? You gave us 2.4 billion, even before Business Rescue came. When Business Rescue came, Business Rescue utilized those monies. They utilized it. Today, last day October, we reached what? Day zero. Day zero. Imagine. Day zero last October. Luckily, there were somersaults. Now we got 150 million. Fine. Thank you very much. However, look at the Post Office Amendment Act that you passed. The Post Office Amendment Act that you passed is late. The Business Rescue Plan speaks to that Post Office Amendment Act. The Post Office of Tomorrow document speaks to that Post Office Amendment Act. That act will enable the South African Post Office to become a winner. But how? How? With 150 million. And promises. I've read your statement, your department statement. They are saying no, they give 150 million now, and then they will have a long-term plan. Look, that's an immediate. 150 is immediate. What about the medium term? Why not negotiate to get to that 4.8 billion? Now we know, the 3.8 billion, now we know. We have reports about BRP going to Parliament, making submissions, nothing comes of it. Meeting with Treasury, nothing comes of it. Nothing whatsoever has come from it. And the chairperson of this August body, in my view, one of the most important portfolio committees in this nation, says to the union, you said it to us, ma'am. You spoke to BRP, but you said it to us, that that plan is unworkable. Of course the plan is unworkable. Of course, ma'am. It doesn't have the money to move the plan. Go and check. The plan is there. It needs the money to move it. Now, there are rumblings in the workplaces. There are rumblings. The workers are rumbling. The workers are not happy. The workers said to me, come and tell those people, we are not happy with them. And this is what I'm saying. I'm a messenger of the workers. I don't represent my own jacket. Yeah. I'm also speaking for the communities. It's not only US political parties that have constituencies out there. We're activists in our communities. We speak about our problems. So, we are going to go to this part. You see, let's hypothetically say you give us 2 billion of the 3.8. Hypothetically speaking, you give us 2 billion. If you give us 2 billion, we can start to maybe pay the 18 cents in the rand that we owe the workers on their provident fund. Remember? We're owing workers. Workers who work their butts off, sorry for the word, their butts off for this post office. That they must receive 18 cents in the rand. We can pay them 18 cents in the rand. We have clean books. We have clean books. We can go for this public-private partnerships that everybody's talking about. But who's going to touch the post office now? Who? Without the state empowering the state. So here we come. We've said to you countless times, to many administrations, the state must empower the state. It cannot be austerity forever. In this case of South African Post Office, it cannot be austerity forever. Something must give in South African Post Office. We can have the Post Office of tomorrow. Ma'am, Chairperson, how do you modernize the Post Office of 150 million? Yet we don't even know if we're going to pay salaries next month. Now, in relation to, before we come to the other solutions.
I'm worried that if I leave you open-ended, we won't have time for everybody else to speak.
We will sleep, yeah.
So you've already been on, I'm keeping track, you're already on 18 minutes. Now, imagine if I give each gentleman next to you 20 minutes with an hour. So can I request that you land so I can give each of them 15 minutes to make their points? So you have 2 minutes to wrap up.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So we are saying in conclusion that We need that money. We also need to streamline operations. Right now, there are depots who are overflowing with letters. They are understaffed. They were understaffed. Occupational health and safety standards are not maintained. There are offices that were closed because we owed people money, but those offices were making lots and lots of profits. Those offices are closed. We don't have cleaners. We don't have staff. The post office is in dire strait even now as we are talking. Workers' rights are being undermined as we are talking now, and especially occupational health and safety, especially overworking workers, because you know when you overwork workers, where there are too much work and too little workers, it impacts on your mental health. It impacts on your mental health. So, and I'm going to be frank, if you call yourselves the representatives of our people, this is the post office of the people. Come to our rescue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, we will not speak on behalf of the BRP. I think they have been overrepresented in terms of submissions, and we will not do so. But we will state fact. One, there's the notion of thinking that you can throw money at your problems, and those problems will be resolved. Before the BRPs arrived here, all of us were here. I think this collective that I was with, we were here. There was a plan called the turnaround plan in post office under McBurns. That plan was supposed to retrench workers in order for it to work. We asked a question. After cutting those workers, is post office going to become profitable? Because if the only solution to turning around post office is cutting the wage bill, and there's no revenue that comes in, we're doing nothing. A new CEO was appointed called Nomkita Mona. She took 2 years to report to this place. She was working from home somewhere in East London or wherever for a very long time. She turned up with another plan, which only changed. And that plan was based on the fact that post office must retrench workers and catch the wage bill. As unions, we also asked, at that point, post office had 16,000 workers. That plan demanded that the headcount be cut to 9,000. And we asked the very question that we asked to the people before. If you cut the 6,000 workers, will the post office turn around? She cut 6,000 workers, it did not turn around. Post office went to liquidation. The creditors came for the money. Because there's a popular view that says unions in post office did not do anything. Unions that you met did not do anything. SAPU and DIPAKU marched, for example, in October to the Treasury to say to the Treasury and the Minister, it is unacceptable for you as Parliament and parliamentarians to undermine a court order sitting in Cape Town. There's a judgment which was delivered on the 10th of July 2023 in the High Court in Pretoria. It has not been changed. Therefore, it's an order of the court. And in that court order, the then minister makes a commitment, Mondli Gungubeli, he makes the commitment to say he's going to provide bailout to post office. It must not go into liquidation. He's going to provide 2.4 billion and 3.8 billion if post office goes into business rescue, not into liquidation. To avoid liquidation, on the 10th of July, post office was placed under business rescue. Now, for those parliamentarians really who do not know what transpired, on the 7th of December of the same year, there was a plan which was put in place, which was adopted by the creditors and everybody in the post office, which was the plan to turn around post office. We did not agree with some of the things. And one of the fundamental things that we opposed is when the minister placed the cutting of 7,000 workers as a prerequisite for turning around post office. Those that were in parliament then, in the portfolio committee, were happy with the plan, Madam Kusela Diko. The then portfolio committee said, we support the BRP, Parliament will make provision that all the money is available. Post office must go and cut 7,000 workers. And we say, after cutting 7,000 workers, will post office be profitable? Because the lesson was that you can cut to the bone. If there's no business and revenue coming in, you are not doing anything. Post office has less than 5,000 workers today who are overworked, exhausted, because when the BRPs implemented the business rescue plan portfolio committee, before the elections, before some of you came here, the cabinet supported the implementation of the plan, which you are saying does not exist. Molten Gungubel is on YouTube, he's on record, saying he supports the plan, the cabinet has approved the plan, and these BRPs that we have been the favorite choice of BRPs to turn around post office because of reasons that they give. Now what then transpired, Comrade GS? The retrenchments were implemented against our best advice. And one of the issues that the BRPs did with implementing that plan, they chopped, they wielded an axe. They did not care if you had qualification, if you were essential, if you were important. If you were identified to be chopped, you were chopped because they were chasing numbers. And we warned against that because we said, you are going to be left with dead wood. You are going to be left with people whose only success has been to collapse post office operations. As we speak today, the people that are left with post office as managers are people that really can't be employed by anybody. The only place they can work is in post office because they survive retrenchments. And I'll make examples, madam, in the portfolio committee. Before the BRPs implemented the retrenchment, there was a scheme, a corrupt scheme here in post office called owner-driver scheme. That was corrupt because there was no agreement. PMFA did not allow it. There was no policy regulating it. The law did not allow it. Now, you had that agreement, owner-driver. When they discussed it with labor at that point, they say, well, once we have retrenched people, those that have cars will be encouraged to take over courier services. But what they did, the same corrupt managers, some of them are still here. They were fingered. I know Nomkita was fired. The COO was fired. But some of the corrupt foot soldiers of those people remain in post office today. And what are they doing? One, the ordinary workers were retrenched. Some of the managers that were supposed to have been retrenched, all of a sudden are found in new roles. Instead of getting rid of them, the brass tabona, they're creating new opportunities for them so that they stay employed. But the problem was the headcount. Remember, why are they retrenched? But all of a sudden, those managers who has been served with 189 letters, who were supposed to only remain because they had applied for vacancies, are allowed to remain behind. Those people that were in the corrupt owner-driver scheme with Nomkita and the rest of them, in fact, have been promoted, some of them. Now, vacancies were advertised in post office, which is what we must talk to, and operations, to say, operations are suffering, and why are those operations are suffering? And why are they suffering? The portfolio committee should ask the BRP if they've done a skills audit and a qualification audit. Because in post office today, you advertise a position and say an NQ level 7 is a requirement. But somebody with a master's does not qualify. But somebody with a dressmaking certificate and a certificate of attendance qualifies for an NQ7 position. If you want us to give you names, we will give you names of those people who were appointed in positions where NQ level 7 was required. But by miracle of God, with their certificate of attendance and dressmaking, they've been appointed into those positions. You have a situation where in transport, the owner-driver scheme was paying 8 rand per kilometer. The people that the BRPs have appointed are being paid 16 rand per kilometer. We don't have accountability in terms of procurement, and there's no open disclosure in terms of what is happening in procurement. What is happening in the acquisition of tools of trade? We were told bicycles were going to be acquired And other tools of trade are going to happen. We are still waiting. And we're saying, whilst there might be challenges with how the business rescue plan has been implemented until now, because there's fundamental challenges also on how it's been implemented, Chair. Another example is what came to the news that they've claimed 200 million for their stay here. Now, I'll make a typical example. There's a head of legal in post office. The guy spends 20 hours doing CCM cases, but he is the head of legal in post office. He must give permission for unions in post office to take cases to CCMA. If you tell me that is not a conflict of interest, then there's no conflict of interest. People cannot spend 3 hours in post office. And when they are not in post office doing their other thing, we are told that 200 million has been spent to pay them. Maybe they can account for it, but I'm just telling you examples. We're saying post office can only be turned around by 2 ways. One, if you make sure that the partnerships that you want post office to conclude are worth it financially and make sense for the post office, Chair. And I'll make an example of a partnership that did not make sense and that has collapsed us as a post office. The SASSA agreement between post office and 14 rands per transaction in that agreement, when actually 28 rand per transaction was required. For the 5 years and more of that contract, post office was subsidizing SASSA and bleeding money that could invest in other operations. It's there, you can go and check. Now, you bring a partnership in good space and in good heart, my leader. But that partnership does not bring value into the post office. It does not bring money into the post office. The ITC infrastructure post office is archaic. You were here, former chairperson. The ICT infrastructure is ancient. They still use Windows 6 or Windows 5. There has not been investment in the infrastructure and the ITC infrastructure for more than 10 years. And you say you want to turn in. SAPO competitors, where are they? They simply carry around a phone to scan your parcel when they deliver it to you. Post office is not halfway there. So if we discuss partnerships and technologies of the future in e-commerce, we must begin to say, where is post office and where do we get there? An open issue. We're sitting here in a post office building with aircons. We have these mobile aircons and fans. But the place has air conditioners that should be working. But workers spend their time in this building. You move here to Atteridgeville Depot, here less than 14 kilometers away. You have workers that can't even take showers because there's no water. You go to Moot, which was here in Lanewood, Ferret Lane, post office. Half of the time, the post office, retail office are offline. When you get in, you can't do a transaction, including the MVL transactions that are supposed to bring in money. So you have MVL that should bring you money, but the technology does not work with you. What has government done? Instead of strengthening the post office, it has taken MVL and giving it to ShopRite and other people. Instead of paying post office 28 rand per transaction, government has taken SASSA and given it to Post Bank, which does not have the infrastructure and the footprint to deliver, because Post Bank depends on post office infrastructure and post office workers. Post office workers in the last 10 years, as I close, the post office workers, I hope parliamentarians can take the same amount of time, have in the last 10 years received a salary increase only 3 times. I hope all of you, for the next 5 years in parliament, can say, I will not take a salary increase. And let's see how it works out when all the costs, including your lodging, your boarding, your housing, your car allowance, and everything increase, and your medical aid. Now, our submission, Chair, is that the decision to say, firstly, to say you cannot, and government must not fund post office, has no basis. If you don't provide that bailout, not necessarily the 3.7 that they want, but a sense of the next year so that there's proper planning, this place will collapse and shut down. There's another problem that I forgot. These BRPs have shut down universal service mandate offices. But they still get the grant, GS, we're talking about it. They still get the money to open rural offices. But under their plan, they've shut down those offices under the pretext that they don't make money. And therefore, we're saying those rural offices that service the Gogos and Mandalas and the villages must be open as a matter of urgency. When they were shutting down offices in Gauteng, as SAPO and DIPAGU, we asked them, why are you shutting down profitable offices? They could not account. Today, you have a situation where the profitable offices have been replaced by Postnet and all other competitors of post office. And they're sitting here saying there's no revenue coming in. But they've shut down offices that were bringing revenue. I'm just putting it out there. I think the leadership would add if there's anything. But the bottom line is, Chairperson, without government support, without what he put, government to government business, there's this term. I'm not sure what it means because the only shareholder here is government. If government does not partner with the post office, the competitors of post office are going to take over the spaces, and post office at some point will have to shut down. We have serious challenges, not of capacity, but equally of personnel. We understand, Madam, that you bring in people with qualifications. And I'll make a scenario. The BRPs came with people with qualifications. But those people had never walked into a post office and understood how post office work. They relied on deadwood from post office to turn around post office in operations. And we're saying if there's to be a board appointed, let's appoint people that have a footprint in business. Let's not bring, there can be cadre deployment, I don't care. But at least bring somebody from DHL and other corporate sector, a seasoned corporate manager. Not a form.
Thank you very much. Thank you, leader. Thank you.
Chair. Yeah, Chair, I'm going to add on behalf of my colleagues here. And to be honest, if you don't have the critical resources in the post office, the photocopying machine, the rubber stamps, or the certification, documentation, and so forth, which we all use in terms of our day-to-day critical services, that's going to be a problem for us. I want to also comment. We got one current good customer with us, the RTMC, the Road Traffic Management, the MVL. As we speak, we, in Gauteng, for example, we are waiting for toners. And if you happen to go to any of the offices, you'll be lucky if they don't service you. And I want to use two examples as well. And with due respect, not to finger point, the parliamentarian guys are too quick to call the CEO's office and complain of an office. And I'm putting two examples here. One was at my Menlo Park, I think it's about 4 months back. It's a pity that time I was on leave, but then again I was called. And one MP's wife went to that office, did the necessary in terms of transaction, but when it came to payment, she uses a watch. You know what I'm talking about. Post office is not ready for that service. And mind you, when that call came from whether it's Cape Town or Union Building, it's for me to discipline, or even I must get rid of that poor staff for no reason. And truth be told, sometimes I think some of us, we exaggerate in terms of support services. The other one I'm going to give you, we were all partying during the Christmas Eve. It's unfortunate, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, SAPO did a full shift. Whereas with previous arrangements, we used to close business. And I think we need to take this going forward, where we get paid on the 11th hour on the 22nd. When does the employees go into shopping? When does the person travel from Pretoria to Limpopo, or you going home? It's unfortunate. Sometimes it's so distressed. It's heartbreaking in a way not to approve, and I'm using you as an example for me to say you can't go and leave. On the Christmas Eve, and I'm not going to mention that, that party here, just for the record. There's one office, Sunning Hill. There's a queue for about close to 70 people outside from 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And as my colleague made mention, our IT is not on the go, where you touch and it generates and generates. It came around 4:30, the branch manager went outside and spoke to, out of the 70 people, guys, I can only take so many after 5, say like another 15 minutes after 5 o'clock. Trust me. And I was the acting RGM at that time. That branch manager was only leaving that office, and it's a lady alone, where she should be spending family time at home. That MP called all the BRPs. They called me, and they make sure I service the person. Now we tried to explain to that customer that come 15 minutes, the system blocks in terms of printing whatever transaction. He didn't want to listen. But finally came the instruction from the BRP, said, serve him. We served him around 7:15, Christmas Eve. But then he saw reality. When we served him, we told him, you see here now, your disk is not going to come out. The RTMC is locked. And this is the challenge, and this is the stress we go through on the eve. I am proposing let us look at the business hours as well in the future of the staff interest. Chair, the other thing I want to also touch, Chair, the situation in SAPO, it's not only affecting SAPO, as my colleagues made mention. And I'm going to use an average worker, and I'm just going to generalize. You will apply your mind. ML processor is earning 10,000. After his deductions, he's taking plus minus 2,500. And my colleague made mention, in fact, for the past 3 years, I would say I'll take it more, plus minus past 7 years. We never saw an increase in terms of proper cash. Those cash that we used to take home after our deductions, I'm taking it to a normal worker, where a worker was taking plus minus 2,500. For this past 3 years, and mind you, not forgetting COVID has had a pullback for us as well. But for this past 3 years, the medical aid and your statutory deductions have swallowed that cash. As I speak to you, it may be in the next couple of months, the current staff that's still employed, they will have no money to come to work, whether it's taxi or whether it's bus or whatever mode of transport. This is where we are currently sitting. I also want you guys to take this back to your parliament or your portfolio, your upper structures. We hear this in the budget speech, or we hear this in speeches from the president. Let all government businesses come back to the post office for us to sustain and survive. Good example is just down the road here. The government printing works is there. The service is there. Opposite the road, we got Swan Mail Center. Let that work come to us. We will do the necessary. We had UNISA. In fact, in terms of service, we were still the cheapest, and I think we are still the cheapest. But the business just actually went out. I'm told some time back, UNISA wants to come back to us. But they say, show us some positiveness. But that's in discussion in terms of our internal structures as such. Some of the information you will listen in terms of the earlier presentations. As management, we have given input for today's dialogue with you guys. Transport, we are still being restricted. Austerity measures. Now, there's mail that you need as good as ASAP tomorrow. But you look at the date, or mind you, I spoke about the date stamps earlier as well. The dials, that's critical resources. those dials are not going to take the future 2026, 2027, and so forth. And some of us, we need certified documents with the correct date and the stamp and the office and so forth. Those dials are all wound out. We've been shouting for the past 10 years. Yes, with due respect, we have the BRP. I know some of the problems they've inherited, but we are still suffering. Let aside going back to the staff issues in terms of salary. Your lights and water has gone up. Your school fees are gone up. Uniform has actually become compulsory. Now, where do we find that extra cash? Some of us, and reality, we tell it as it is. You pay 2 credit cards, which we didn't want, but we were forced during the COVID time. We pay to the credit card, we wait for the next month, we go back in terms of borrowing as such. The IT resources, my colleagues have touched on it. It's so bad, it's outdated. That's a challenge on its own again. I think I'll pause for now, Chair, and I'll hand over to anyone else who want to add.
No, it's my meeting, Chief. It's my meeting, Chief. I am hesitant to open up President SG leadership because I thought that the colleagues who were speaking on behalf of the organizations. So I'm very, very hesitant to open up. Because we're listening Parliament, we will ask if there's any burning edition, which will only give 1 minute for that burning edition if there was something that was very obvious that it was left out. None, okay. No issues. Okay, 2 minutes. No? Okay, no. Yes, what is the question? I can hear you. Stops to what?
Yeah, I want to check with the portfolio committee because they've made an announcement about the BRP levy. They must leave as soon as tomorrow. I did not want to address and confine myself in that process because it's the court order and the Companies Act that tells us how the BRP is being. I wanted to check in terms of where you are sitting. What are the timelines that we look into, that we should look at, because you don't want a situation where the BRP process is endless. People, the BRPs are just here invoicing 10% of the allocation for themselves. Because basically what you have with the first allocation, if it's true they've invoiced 200 million out of 2.4 million, it means they've invoiced almost 10% of it for themselves. Now, if you are to bail them out with 3.8 billion, and they are to invoice again 10% of that for themselves, it says 380 billion is going to go into their pocket, and we don't have timelines and time frames on when they are going to vanish in this place, because we need to have a functioning post
we've had your question. Thank you. Baba, you wanted to take up the 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think I heard the chairperson says they are contrary to the business plan that has been approved. So my worry with, I just wanted to touch on the impact that it's having if the parliamentarians are not willing to give us this bailout that we are seeking. We are here to say, please, let's not play games with workers' future. We are having family to support. To be honest, the current situation in post office is killing us. The impact of closing down post office, we are having in mail business, VETSPOS, I'm not sure how many letters we have that are not delivered. Parcels that are not delivered are regarded as return to sender because there is no one that is going to send those parcels. So we are having a serious challenge. We are appealing that at no time, let's not play games, let's approve these monies to assist, to bail out BRP. We are not saying go for this 308 billion. We are saying whatever that can sustain post office, that can sustain workers. It's very unfortunately that workers are not receiving increases at this stage. So we are appealing, please.
I see a hand at the back. So what we're going to do, okay, we had thought we would have this engagement, then have a separate engagement. But because I can see that Nyachisega, you want to come in, we'll give you your 10 minutes to make your input, right? And then we will take discussions then as a whole. Thank you. Please do introduce yourselves, and then you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Jacqueline Maja, ex-post office worker. I'm with my ex-colleagues here, Tabang Kwane, Barafans Mukotlane, and Ponso and Macy. Can I express myself with my language? Please, thank you very much. Tina Singabantu aba retrenched last year before Easter. Actually, veling a weekend Easter. It was so sad, Gitina. We only get ama SMSs from ama phone wethu. After our retrenchment, siyesaya e-office laga minister. Simjela ukuthi minister, this thing eyenzakele e-post office, it was not fair. The retrenchment itself, the criteria that ebayisebenzisile, it was not fair. Because into beyenzeka, each and every one oyi-manager, bekabhala amagama, because lona kamthandi. Okay. Fair. Into eyenzeka ngale retrenchment, it was totally unfair because there was no criteria. Bengana criteria. You only get that SMSs. No one even come to us as a sensitizer because besukuma trauma. One of our comrades, she got an SMS while she was on hospital. One of our comrades, she went to the bathroom, ayofunda letter yakhe retrenchment. She collapsed that day. The same BRP, ayenzanga lutho. We never got the counseling. We are talking about the workers who are earning 6,000 per month, who are surviving at 6,000 per month. So we notice ukuthi we're gonna fight until stolama answers, of which we even engage with Nobaba Ungungubeli. The old man, he say it mouthful ukuthi post office retrenchile. There's nothing that he can do. During that process, there was some calls from management of post office calling people, recalling people without any criteria. If when uzwana no manager, they will call you that come back to work. Mina ngoba me enemy of post office, of management, they won't call me. Because ngumntwana kabo manager, bazongibiza bathi isimsebenzini. The sad part of it, ukuthi EPRP, it said, they don't have money. Those people who have been called by that day, they called them on the 23rd of April. On the 25th, they got full salary. The salary that they never worked for it. So it's clear for us, ukuthi post office, it does have a imali. The same BRP was giving ama position, high positions. Some of the comrades, like Comrade Light Marvin, he was fighting, he was a comrade. But after he got a position, abe manager, and also his wife got a position, abe manager. They never fight for abasebenzi. That was happening. Some of the unions, they got a position. So we believe ukuthi sathengiswa thina, sathengisa. Almost 5,000 people abaluza imsebenzi. I'm talking ngomama no baba, abane family, ababhadala ibond. Today izindlu zidliwe. Imoto zidliwe. nge-BRP. So we are very unhappy nge-process eyenzakala. Currently, i-post office is full of work. We try even to engage Nobab Shelembe. You know, the money we get, it was less than 100,000. I got 40,000 for retrenchment. Guys, it's so sad. The BRP agree with labor movement. Uguti layo 40,000, they must pay us on trenches for 6 months. I'm waiting for Imaliam from my pension money from Isanlam, but that's 40,000 to survive. Ngayithola nge 6 months. Bengizo survive anjani? I remember the time we go, Ubab Shelemba wasitshela wathi, guys, niyangmangaza ukuthi ni la, i-BRP ithe i-labor movement, ama-union, bathe sinikeze yona in trenches because nizoyimosha. Just imagine, the 40,000, ekufanele ngisa abantwana bami esikoleni, ekumele ngisurvive ngayo, ngithole for 6 months. Silinde, comrade, the imali, for 4 years, on our payslip, it was saying they are taking imali, ye pension fund, for the past 4 years. But when I was retrenched, that money, I never got it. I only got it 12 cents from each rand. And they say it, EPRP, even last week, they say it with Bonaba agreeile nama unions. So they are only going to give us 18 cents on top of the money that they are owing us. It's a lot of money. Uzo survive kanjani. Imali ethe siyitholile, it's 120 ye pension fund. Because post office was not paying ama pension fund wethu. But on our payslip, beyisho clear ukuthi siyanithathela imali pension fund, but it didn't go to Sanlam. Sisaphethe ileyo trauma leyo. Another thing, what is happening, the same BRP that is in the post office, ba appointe i-management, ba chopper down abantu abaku floor. So I asked them ukuthi, if ni chopper abantu abahambisa umsebenzi and you leave management who is not doing anything currently at this moment, umsebenzi is piling at post office, amaphasela is piling at post office, akekho umuntu ozowadeliver, i-management ihleli. For instance, in ML Center, currently as we speak, people who are working there, they are less than 100, or yeah, I think they are less than 100. They have 3 managers. Who are they managing? Air transport, there's a manager, there's an area control, there's supervisors. They are managing less than 20 people. So it's how that BRP was trying to save imali post office. How can you create ama position a high, laba obabhadala imali encane uyabachop? Ubani ozohambisa umsebenzi? No one. Instead, we even tell Ubab Shelemba, which Bab Shelemba, we have plan as singabantu aba retrenchiwe. We don't have a problem. I was a mail processor. If they create a position with cleaning, I'll also go that. I will also need a new cleaner laba because I'm not sebenzi. I don't have qualification. I don't have qualification. I think 100% of the people who are outside, they don't have qualification. I'm talking mama ona 50 years. Uzo yo marketa group at this moment. Usese nabantwana abayesikoleni. EPRP on top of that, they bring ama service provider ukuthi come and work. While tina we were willing ukuthi singayenza ne security. Instead they hire more security at post office while tina scorn. And we were willing ukuthi siwenze lo msebenzi lo. Cleaning, gardening, securities. Besifisa ukuyenza ukuthi sisave umsebenzi wethu. Come to the issue of owner drivers. Comrade, this owner driver scheme, it started when post office work was not moving. The post office work was piling each and every day because there was no one who was willing to assist the post office or give post office is motos abo ukuthi ba provide umsebenzi because they were not paying ama agencies from outside. Then they come to us, but guys, sicela nisinedeni abanemoto bafake imoto zabo, ne? We brought our cars. They were paying us 5 rand 65 cents for each and every kilos. And lento engizoyitshela yona, it's so sad. After they see ukuthi labantu laba baphakathi, they are making money. The same management, unomkhita, no babu, who's this manager? The one who is in the floor. They brought agent, ne, uskan. The agent, they pay them 16 rand something. Me, now they give me 5 rand. The agent that they brought in post office, they were paying them 16 rand something. So what they did, they said, we don't want this owner driver anymore. We don't want asisayifuni owner drive. Sesifuna the agent yangaphandle. And this agent, when it comes with the driver and the person who's going to assist that driver. While post office workers are there, who knows umsebenzi we post office, who knows how to deliver. Tina siyazi ukuthi this street ngizodeliver kuphi. If I have a parcel, ngiyalithatha ngilisa direct lapho. But now when BRP came, they say thatha wonke umsebenzi, ufake esakeni ubophe, uyolahlela retail. I-customer lizolanda umsebenzi laphayana.
Points that you have to tell us.
Yeah, so we believe ukuthi Babshalem, I think last time we even told you ngoba iBRP bedlala ngathi, since we had a meeting nabo from last year, there's no progress. Last time we even asked him, I think Babshalem will add ukuthi BRP, you are continuing nge-corruption eyenza i-post office na. Ute ubaba womvenda laphayana wathi ngithole iso i-post office. I asked him ukuthi usaqhubeka ngayo lento eyenzakalayo e-post office na. Wathi ngithole ikanjalo. So kunzima e-post office. Thina into esicelayo portfolio committee singabazali. As we speak manje, imali esinayo ekhaya it's 120. Asikhona ukuphila, sicela umsebenzi wethu back. We are willing nokuthi sihambe sekwamanye ama department, as Department of Health, sicele ukuthi awabuye ama parcel, we can deliver medication. With Public Works, we can do their jobs. Eyenza post office, so siyacela nis assist. Just imagine 4,500 yabantu abahleli la ngaphandle abanganamsebenzi as we speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sis Jacqueline. Sorry man, I laughed when you said babom venda ngiyababheka manje wangikhangela noba ngophi lokho khulunywa ngayo. But thank you Sisi, thank you so much for your presentation. Colleagues, I allowed names to be thrown around because we wanted to get the full story of what you are saying. But I want to caution very much about us accusing people who are not here to respond. I think just as a principle, but we do need to get the information. Members, you have heard the submissions that are coming from DIPACO, SAPO, CWU, TCTC, non-unionized management, as well as USIS Jacqueline on behalf of some of the workers who were retrenched from the post office. Now, I think the appeal is clear. One, we need support on the 3.8 billion. There's the issue of the going-ons within the post office, which I think require additional looking into. There's the issue of the retrenched staff, and then there's the issue of where to from here. I'm not summarizing, members. I'm just prompting you in some of the issues that are being raised. He's gathering his thoughts. Honorable Souls, they say that you are always combat ready. But can I check, members, I think all of you could hear Sizulu, ne? When are you from KwaZulu Natal? There's no Sizulu in Eldos. Okay. Okay, very, very briefly, Honorable Souls. So they were retrenched in around Easter. They're very sad losing their jobs. They were informed of the retrenchment by SMS. After they were retrenched, they went to Minister, I think it was Mr. Gungubele, to indicate that this was not fair. The retrenchment had no criteria. Each manager would just write down names of people that would be retrenched because they did not like somebody. So there was no criteria. No one really cared, even though the process was very sensitive and traumatic. One colleague was in hospital when they received the SMS of retrenchment. Another went to the bathroom and collapsed after receiving the notice of retrenchments. The BRPs did nothing afterwards. There was no counseling that was provided. The employees were earning around 6,000 Rand per month. They had to fight until they got answers. Then during this process, others were recalled back to work because they were loved by management. Some siblings of some of the managers were called back. The BRPs had said there was no money, but people were called on the 23rd of April, and then on the 25th of April, they got their full salaries, clearly showing that SAPO has the money. It's not true. The BRPs were giving them some money. Then there were also comrades who were initially fighting with the workers. After a while, they were made management. The comrade and his wife were made management. The workers feel that they were sold out. Almost 4,000 workers lost their jobs. They lost their homes. And because of this business rescue process, there's a lot of work in the post office. The monetary value of what was received after retrenchments was around 40,000 Rand, and that was paid in 3 tranches over 6 months. They are still waiting for payment from Sanlam on pension funds. Mr. Shilembe had said that the BRPs said the unions were okay with this money being paid over tranches over 6 months because the workers will waste it if it is given to them. They never got their pension funds. They're only getting 12 cents or 18 cents to the Rand when they eventually get their pension funds. But this money was never paid to Sanlam. Okay, so now of the people that were retrenched, most of them were people who were working on the shop floor, but the management has been kept in. There's work that is piling in. For example, you have about 100 people working in a mail center, but with 3 managers. Who are these managers managing? In the transport department, you have 20 people, less than 20 people working there, but you have an area manager and other managers for just these people. And then, so yeah, and then the last point was around the BRPs. They're busy bringing in service providers, whereas the workers had said that they were prepared to do anything, even if it was cleaning. But BRPs are bringing in security, cleaning, gardening services. The owner-driver scheme that was spoken about, it happened because nobody was willing to use their transport until this scheme was created. There, the workers, when they use their own cars, were being paid 5 Rand, 65 Rand per kilometer. Then the previous CEO and the gentleman, I'm not sure if that was the vendor gentleman or so, but so the gentleman and the previous CEO brought in an agency who they paid 16 Rand per kilometer versus the 5 Rand 65 that they were paying the workers. And basically, I think the appeal is that these 4,500 workers, they would really wish to have their jobs back. Are you interpreting my summary? No. Okay. Says Nabila Manj.
There's a narrative that is being peddled. And if we do not respond as Labour sitting here, the portfolio committee might accept it. You see, when you have this, we are here. Now, when you talk about us being here, and you are representing the process, we have...
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you. Because you did the same, and I cautioned that, right? You spoke about people who are not here to respond. You remember I cautioned that, and I said, we listened because we need... Yes. But we can't have a dialogue. I'm at the chair. I'm saying, you also spoke about people who are not here to respond. Ne? So, because we are not in a situation where everybody who has been mentioned can respond, it's not fair to afford you the right of reply without affording other people an opportunity. What this is showing, though, is that people do need to respond to issues that are being said. So I'm saying you will get your time to respond. It's just not going to be on this platform. It's the members' turn to reflect. Best or Honorable Souls. Honorable Souls.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll just say, if I have to reflect, yesterday and today, it is clear to me that business rescue, there's a difference between business rescue and staff. It seems like they are considered separate. You want to rescue the business, but there's not a disposition of viewing rescuing the business includes rescuing staff or rescuing jobs. I'll make an example of why I say that. I'm now hearing, and even yesterday, what the staff is saying. There's just no consideration, no sensitivity at all to what staff is going through. If you hear an agent is brought in, instead of calling old staff, it is an insensitivity towards people that has given their lives to this institution. I close with this, Chair, and it's very disappointing for me. I remember the interim CEO shared about the assets, and I don't know if you can remember the assets, and at one point it was said that before selling assets, rather upgrade the infrastructure, then sell it because we'll have a greater return. I don't hear the same kind of sensitivity when it comes to staff, when it comes to people. And so it is very disappointing, and I just wish that we could amend the adopted business rescue plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yeah, my comrade here is looking at me like, what are you going to say? But my first point is we never wanted retrenchments. Look, one of the key things that maybe before I start my thoughts to agree with and expand on what Honorable Souls is saying, I think we have to start, Chair, maybe advise in other state-owned entities as well, even in our portfolio. When we look at assets, I don't know why staff does not fall under assets, because this is the institutional memory. These are the people that make the business work. These are the ones that have built this entity to be what it is over a period of time. But we seem to want to protect properties that are dilapidated and laying vacant. We want to protect everything else except for the people. And for us in business school, we're taught that the first asset that you have to build, protect, and nurture is the people. Even if you've got machines, if you don't have the people with the right skill to operate it, the business is going to fail. And that's why, if you will remember in my questions with the BRPs this morning, I asked maybe twice around the human resources. What are your plans? Because it doesn't come through. I don't see anywhere where they talk about people. Are they going to reskill? Who are they going to hire? It's just facts, figures, properties, things that are just not, they don't have a human factor for people that are in an environment where we are about people, Ubuntu. Those are the values that we carry as this government. And the people of this land. But let me start here in my reflection. I'm hearing conflicting views coming from the unions. I'm not sure what is your understanding of what is contained in the BRP plan. You made some very sweeping statements to say we want to chuck away the turnaround plan, we don't want it, or something of that nature, this portfolio committee, which is not true. We've never not accepted or chucked away the BRPs. Maybe it was in a previous portfolio committee, I don't know. But you are conflicting yourself because you are buying into this plan. You are almost begging us to facilitate that they put in the 3.8 billion. But I'm not sure if you understand the outcome of this plan, because you seem to be wanting to protect the business at the, in my view, at the expense of the people. And this BRP, at the end of it, what I saw in the projection, we have less people than what you have even now. So I'm asking myself if indeed you understand what they are going to do. Because if you are complaining about retrenchments now, what I saw in 2029 projection, tears are still going to flow. So maybe you and the BRPs need to sit down and really unpack this plan and be on the same page, because the 3.8 billion that you're crying for, it may not be something that you're going to celebrate in 5 years' time if your key issue is to save jobs. That's my contribution on that one. Number two, you're talking about rolling out a plan that will bring back retrenched workers. Again, the gentleman there spoke about that. To say we must bring back retrenched workers. Once this money is in, we're going to modernize, we're going to do this. Can you go in posing as a turnaround? Because you are in conflict with what is going to be happening going forward. And then you covered me when you spoke about the 10% budget that is going to be to the BRPs. It's what we have noted. We have not fully engaged on it, but indeed there's 100 million that is going to the BRPs. And my concern is that the staff cost is 211 million, which has been reduced to 115 million according to the BRP plan. Yet the BRP is 200 million. So again, I'm not sure which plan you guys are advocating for. Because if you're labor and you're fighting for workers, I think you need to go and study the plan, apply your minds on what it is that you want to be fighting for as unions and how you want to wage the fight. Because it doesn't talk about increasing workers or retaining workers, but it talks about fair cuts and reducing costs in terms of the staff. That's my reflection. Thank you so much, Chair.
Before you come in, Honorable Vilakazi, I think also for the purposes of the advisors, as you reflect on the presentation, can I request that members, if also there's recommendations that you want to put, which will ultimately form part of the report, that you also speak to them so that we're able to capture those as well. Honorable Shongwe.
Thank you, Chair. Sanbonani Bafuthu. Chair, I would be very short. I'm sitting here as a politician, and I find myself in a position where I'm very much interested to take this into a political landscape and discuss this politically. But will be found as a person who wants to be point scoring politically. Chair, you said BRP Melihlale nathi futhi again izokhuluma nathi answer those questions. Again, Chair, I appreciate isikhathi osipesona nabasebenzi because now gives us more content on what was hidden by the people of BRP. The bailouts from then for 9 years is about 10 billion now to ISAPO. 2.4 billion on September was given to BRP. And none of that speaks in depth ngabasebenzi. Most of it speaks of infrastructure and the rest of it. Where is abasebenzi in this? My question is that I did ask BRP what convinced them to take this task ukuthi bazosebenza neSAPO, and I never got that answer, Chair. I still want that answer when we want them back. So I would not say anything to our comrade La, but I would say, as a politician, I'll be listening to them and taking a mandate for our next meeting to discuss this thing in depth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Vilakazi.
Thank you, Chair. Sibingelele kuma representatives abasebenzi nakubasebenzi. Thank you for this opportunity. I think Seban Kavile in large measure my my fellow honorables, and I agree, Chair, with the Honorable Shongwe's proposal to put these questions and these queries before the BRPs, because otherwise it's difficult. It's difficult to know the situation exactly or what motivated certain actions. But I think they do need to account for it. Thankfully, one of their representatives, one of their senior representatives, is in the room. I would also just say, Uguti, for me, it's not. I don't think it should be a surprise to any of us Uguti, why the workers ended up bearing the brunt of the process. It is the nature of capitalism. You sit with the process, you see a company is bankrupt. Okay, the main thing about saving the company, where do we cut costs? Okay, we list all the costs. What's the biggest cost in any organization? Usually it's staff. In a service-oriented organization such as the post office, staff costs are going to be even higher than others. Normally, staff, and in fact, it's not even normal because it depends very much on the type of organization, but staff costs will vary anywhere between 50 and sort of 60%, 65%. That's normal in many industries. In one such as the post office, such a service-intensive thing, staff costs could go as high as 80%. So if you look at it purely from a numbers point of view, cutting the staff is what's going to give you your biggest return. So I don't think it should surprise us there. What is a big concern about what we are learning is the process followed and how people get exploited and how unscrupulous leaders end up benefiting themselves. But the problem with it as well is that it's the idea behind AMA unions that I've come to learn in my own roles in leadership and being a worker myself in other environments is it's based on solidarity. You know, each for you strike one, you've struck us all. You know, those kinds of things. But what we find then in poisoned environments, such as what is being discussed here, is that people don't care about others. They only care about themselves and what they can gain out of the process. And so that's why for us, in order to be able to get into what went wrong and where did this go wrong, it's better to interact with the BR. But I can tell you a response also that we will get from the BRPs. They will say, no, this happened before we came, the bulk of it. And then even the other parts that they did, they were just delivering a plan that had already been put in paper. But I just want to convey to you that you have, I feel the pain, I feel the pain that you feel, and that as a committee we will just do our best, Chair, to see to what extent there can be any compensation. And I just realized now, Chair, what this 12 cents to the rand actually means. You know, because it means that there are some people who, instead of the normal 2 weeks per year worked of retrenchment costs as in the LRA, were getting, you know, 12%, only 12% of that. And that's a lot if your livelihood has just been shut, especially just by the receipt of an SMS at really virtually no notice. But I pray that we will be able to bring some sense at least. The other point I wanted to make is we do need to have, there's always this need for better communication all the time between the BRPs and the unions, between the unions themselves and the staff, so that there aren't these misconceptions and finger pointing at the end of the day. Thank you, Chair.
Maybe just to not forget the point that Honorable Vilakazi makes. Dumela Mbakgola, I'm so sorry. I just did not want to lose my trail of thought. Chair, where Honorable Vilakazi ends is where there needs to be engagement between the workers and the staff. I think we would be it would be an overreach on our part. It is something that we must mandate. Babu Shalembe sitting here as the leader of government of what is this? Shareholder. As the shareholder representative, perhaps as a recommendation is that as the portfolio committee, we recommend that he convenes that meeting and give feedback to the portfolio committee. Perhaps that would be my first recommendation. Chair, we cannot help but empathize with the stories that we have heard this afternoon. It really speaks to the systematic breakdown of the South African Post Office. And while some of us might not have worked in at the Post Office, as end users of the services of the Post Office, we have been a part of the systematic experienced the breakdown of SAPO, because we had reliance in terms of the services that SAPO provides. So no South African can say they have not felt the demise of SAPO. But the point I would like to make, without being political, is the realization the need to realize that we cannot and we must not rely on government as an employer. The role of government must remain to ensure that there is an environment that is conducive for creating jobs. Because based on the information that we received as well this morning, SAPO onboarded at some point 8,000 people. Employees at some point, and the effects thereof are still felt to this day. Because if you're going to onboard people and you can be heralded for creating jobs as SAPO, then down the line the problems will be felt. So we should really be pushing for business to be creating the jobs and government to be the one that creates a sustainable environment for job creation. Then we do not find ourselves here. With the greatest appreciation that there's service obligations that SAPO carries, but if we are going to meet those obligations, there has to be a business element to it and not just onboarding people that will not have a place in SAPO. That is where things went wrong. And about the political and the business rescues and the whatever, if we start having that conversation, it's going to really be a long day. Chair, I think the saddest thing is that people knew back in the days, I remember I have friends whose parents worked in post office, that if you work for an organization like post office, you are going to retire comfortably. Now to hear that you have a situation where 40,000 will be paid over 6 months and there's lack of consultation. Babusha Lembe comes back to the department. Where was the oversight of the department when people were fired over SMSs? When people were retrenched through an SMS? When the Section 189 processes are clear, there should be consultation. If necessary, there should be wellness brought into it. Where was the how did this fall through the crack? How did this process fall through the cracks of the department? And also appreciating that what we heard this morning from the BRP practitioners to say the shareholder is not in charge. Maybe I'm answering my own question. So this process is just something else, Chair. Chair, I think for the question, when we went to the Eastern Cape on oversight, we received reports from some employees of SAPO that you were forced as employees to open Post Bank accounts, and as a result, you have half your salary going into your whatever account, and then the other half going into a SAPO. Is that the case? I don't need an answer on that, but is that allegation true? Just, oh, okay, I'm getting a confirmation that that is true, because that also leads to the conversation that we must have when we see Post Office, Post Bank or later in the week to say, you're having these inflated bank figures, bankers, but it's people that did not have a choice but to become your clients. Chair, on how we proceed, I really want to take guidance from yourself. Mine would be, Chair, we request a meeting as a portfolio committee before we even digest the report that the content advisors are going to be submitting. And we express ourselves proper, because now we have constraints of time and it's really being a long day. And I know people in this room, some of them would need to be catching taxis to go home. So perhaps the suggestion, Chair, is that we have a standalone meeting to express ourselves on this oversight even before we receive the parliamentary report, and to just give comfort to the people that we represent that even in our engagements with the business practitioners, we really ask questions to the best of our ability. And as they left today, the business practitioners, we expressed as well to say, even the questions that we asked as MPs, we were not satisfied with the answers that we received. Again, time is an issue, but we have been promised that whatever was not answered today, it will be answered in writing. And again, we'll use different mechanisms to communicate to yourselves as our constituents. Chair, the point I really wanted to make is on how people's names were mentioned in this meeting. And without those names being mentioned, we would not have understood the context. Can you speak to us about the parliamentary protection of the people who spoke in this meeting today? What do the rules say so that everybody understands it explicitly? Because if they were going to not be mentioned, it would have been lost in translation. So maybe you could speak for that. And one thing, the very last thing I want to say, Chairperson, and perhaps this is to all of us. Chair, if we miss an opportunity to change this sector as this 7th administration, it is going to be a travesty that will be written against our names. So we have that responsibility as this portfolio committee to see what we can do to change what has really taken years and years to be the breakdown of everything that we see in this portfolio, in this portfolio. Yes, that's the word.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to be very, very, very brief, but to thank the leadership here of the unions and the retrenched workers for the presentations they've made.
Honorable Matafa, Honorable Bodlani, Honorable Vilagazi, Honorable Shongwe, Honorable Makubela, Honorable Sols. I will say their name each time before they speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for that intervention. Maybe, Chair, for me, I'll start first with the retrenched workers. I think what we owe to them is some level of Ubuntu. You know, retrenchment is a very difficult and painful process. And I agree with all the members that spoke before me. And not only up to a point where they were retrenched, but even afterwards, when they were sent from pillar to post, as they were trying to get answers. I think, Chair, this platform gives at least the shareholder representative an opportunity for him to explain the rights that he has given the BRP process. Because I know there are limitations in terms of how far he can go or the shareholder can go during this process. But when workers come and ask for answers, they are sent from pillar to post instead of being addressed to say this is the situation, this is how far we can go, so that when they go and speak to the constituencies, they have an answer to give to the constituencies. I think, Chair, this platform gives the DDG the platform to do that. There was a hypothetical situation painted by the presenters that maybe we must think of a situation where as MPs we don't get an increase, how it will feel. In the previous administration, I think there were 2 financial years where the president recommended 0% increase for us. After that, the first time we got it, it was only 3%. It was very painful. So I can only think of those that moved from 6,000 to 0. How would it have been felt? Hence, I'm saying I think all that we owe them is Ubuntu to say, you know, you went through a process, maybe it was not handled properly, even post, and let's just give them the answers they need. 2 questions. 1, do organized labor sit with the BRP and the shareholder to discuss what is happening, to discuss the process? If that happens, when you picked up this 18 rands, or is it 16 rands per kilometer arrangement happening, what did organized labor say, understanding that there was a scheme aimed to benefit those workers who lost their jobs, which is being shelved, and a new and more expensive one is taking place? Again, I understand there are limitations because the BRP is likely the one that will take decisions going forward. To the leadership from DIPACU, when the BRP came here, was there no business plan from SAPO in terms of what they would have wanted to achieve before and after bans? Because you mentioned bans in your submission. I'm interested to find out if whether you supported his approach and if whether you believe that his approach would have assisted the post office. Because the information that we received, I said in the budget committee, in the previous administration, I don't think that would have achieved much, but I just want you to tell me what is your view on that one. And how much of the BRP, based on what you are seeing as organized labor, is being incorporated into the rescue plan based on what they would have found as they came in. And Chair, on the issue of what powers does the committee have as far as this matter is concerned, we will be in your hands. You will guide us going forward in terms of what this meeting can achieve, especially understanding that we have a meeting pending with the BRP as a follow-up based on the questions that remain unanswered. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Subrati.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to all the leaders that are here and our guests who are here. Chairperson, let you ask us to reflect on and provide some guidance in terms of where we should be going. And I've used that when I noted some points down. Chairperson, I think what we're seeing here is the manifestation of when the horses have bolted out of the stable. It talks to a systemic problem we have, I think, in the employment-employee relationship, particularly, I think, in the state employment arena. The President has mentioned very clearly that we need to have a far more excellent public service. And I think for me, the first point we need to understand is when SOEs fail, this is not the time when we should respond. It's actually, we need to go upstream and understand that maybe we haven't had an adequate relationship as an employer and as an employee to pick up the problems upstream before they happen. We heard yesterday, for example, certain suggestions made by employees of SABC of how they could contribute and their suggestions to improving the business. And I think this is probably lacking. We're seeing this passion again coming through here. So I think, Chairperson, the first thing for my contribution would be is that we should make this engagement with employees part of our oversight routine, and not only for this department, but I think certainly for other portfolio committees as well, so that we pick up these challenges and allow employees an opportunity to engage and ventilate and learn from their concerns. So that's the first recommendation I would make, is that all portfolio committees, we recommend that they incorporate this. Chairperson, the relationship between state employees and the state rests with the Department of Public Service and Administration. Therefore, as a second recommendation, I would suggest that this matter be escalated to them, not specifically for DCDT, but rather our learnings from this oversight, that PSA needs to have a deeper relationship with its employees and particularly create what I would call feedback loops or mechanisms where employees are heard and their grouses are heard. And I think the space the way that should be going is in the Department of Public Service and Administration. I think specifically relating to the issues raised here, needless to say, in our letters to the BRP, we should raise these and we should get responses from the BRP. Chairperson, we must be extra cognizant of the plight and the pleas that have been made here, and we should try very hard to ensure that the 3.8 billion is secured. I think that's been something that just to give comfort to representatives of workers. The portfolio committee has been really very strong about securing the 3.8 billion. But I think hearing it from you all, it just emboldens us further to try even harder. As I mentioned, there needs to be a deeper and honest conversation between the employer and the employee. And I do believe the conversation should be both ways. It should also be about employees understanding what are their inefficiencies within public servant. It can't only be about the employer is wrong. We must have an honest conversation, because the state is the single largest employer in the country. And I think frontline services has been an area that we have been criticized about, and we must be honest about this. So I think a conversation between both parties, so that we differentiate ourselves on service excellence. An employer meets the expectations of employees, or at least try to, and the employees as well must meet the expectation of the employer in delivering service excellence. It can't be, it's unfair for it to be a one-way road. It's a quid pro quo. It has to be a give and take and a fair relationship. And finally, Chairperson, with regards to specifically as a recommendation to those employees, particularly those who were retrenched at the lower level salary level, I would recommend that we create within the state a listing of such employees, a priority listing where they are listed, especially those who are struggling, those we have heard 4,500, 6,000. These employees be listed so that if there are opportunities, they be given preference. And also we should look at possibly reskilling opportunities for those employees who feel that the only thing they know is post office duties. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Honorable Elisha.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me greet everyone in the room this afternoon. I think, Chairperson, we are on record saying that these retrenchments should never have happened, because we didn't believe that they were a solution, and also we knew that they would affect our people in the manner that they are affected by right now. Because we believe that the retrenchment of workers was just a proof and maybe a lack of direction within SAPO. But here we are now. And I would like to pose a few questions to the union, that as much as they are voices of the people who are retrenched, they are still the voices of the people who are retained by SAPO. So I want to understand maybe what role have they played in representing the interest of the people who are within SAPO right now. They were talking about how, you know, there's a staff shortage and things like that. I just want to know in the role that they're playing in representing the interest of those people. And maybe another question, Chair, I just want to understand the unions, the role that they are playing in the transition. Is it transition of this BRP, right? Are they involved in any way, and how are they supporting and ensuring that the employees are supported in this transition? Those are the only questions I have for them. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Elisha. Honorable Sithole.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to leadership of union and the representative of workers. Honorable Chairperson, if you notice, when you say the unions are coming and the workers, they were very fast. They were very fast to pack their pack and really, what actually have happened. We noticed that one. Honorable Chairperson, first of all, I'm trying to check with the unions the relationship between them and the staff that were retrenched, because it seems that there is that gap which you're supposed to close it, because if you have that relationship, they're supposed to report whatever challenges that they are facing to you as a representative. So now I think we have to close that gap. You have to sit with them and find out actually, because you see, if they were paid on their cars 5 rand, what was 5 rand, but the contract were given 14 rand, 16 rand. So where was the union during that transitions and during those process? Because they're supposed to speak on behalf of the workers. They're supposed to be part of the workers. So sometimes there is that gap that you're supposed to close it. And then Honorable Chairperson, the problem that we hear today, it is the same like the one that we received yesterday. The submission that you received yesterday from the workers. It means there is a lot of dispute and the challenges that are happening in communication entities, because those are our entities. So now I think, Honorable Chairperson, we cannot say anything more, but I think that my suggestion, Honorable Chairperson, is that when the BLP come to us, is that possible if we can have workers, unions, to come and listen to what they are saying, so that whatever decision we take, it will be a collective decision, because we will find the report from workers and the report from the BLP. BLP, yes. So now I think that will help us to understand, because you see, if somebody is saying something about somebody who's not there, you cannot actually respond to what somebody has said. So I think that Honorable Chairperson will be my suggestion.
Thank you, Honorable Sithole. Mr. Shareholder Representative, it would be amiss if I did not give you an opportunity to say a word or two.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to the union representatives and the former employees of the post office. Chairperson, I don't know where to start, but maybe let me just start here and try and put Honorable Bodlani at ease that there is no amount of perfection of oversight that allows us to know things at the shop floor before they occur. That is the unfortunate situation we are in. But as soon as we get to know about these things, I think the former employees of SAPO will attest to this. Whenever they come to my office, which is many times now, I make sure we get the BRPs in the room, or the representatives of the BRPs in the room, to go through the issues that they raise. Some of the issues get resolved, for instance, like instances where there have been, I'm being intimidated, but
Protected, Mr. Shelembe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For instance, like instances where they have been complaining that they have not received their pension payouts, they have not received their retrenchment tranches, and so on. I will call the BRPs. The BRPs will seek the list of people who have not been paid, and they will make sure that they follow up on those payments. Some of the meetings we have had included the representation of the SAP, or the Post Office Retirement Fund, trustees who have come to explain, or at least the principal office of the retirement fund, who has come to explain what were the delays, or to what extent have people been paid their outstanding pensions. So I'm trying to say, Chairperson, as the representative of the shareholder, as soon as we get to know about these things, at least we do not sit in the comfort of our offices and do nothing. We have intervened, not once, not twice, but very many times. And my office remains open for the people who wish to raise these issues in a way that allows us to intervene and come to the bottom of those issues as to what is indeed taking place. So, Chairperson, that will be my response, really. Thank you.
No, I was going to give you a chance because you were asked questions. You were asked questions, so you may respond to the questions. But then I'm also saying, when you respond now, respond to the questions you were asked by members. Do not respond to what you wanted to respond to before, because there'll be another opportunity for that. Then know that you are not coming back. Thank you very much. You may proceed.
My time will be shared with comrades where I have not addressed issues. One is the question that says, have unions been involved, and the role of the shareholder? Our challenge starts there with that shareholder. The comrade sitting next to you has a Bible full of letters he has written to the shareholder about post office problem. To Mr. Shilend, there's been acknowledgement and no response, so that we take issues to the shareholder and the shareholder engages. Now he comes here and says, I don't know what's happening on the shop floor. He has letters that he has acknowledged he has not responded to. We requested meetings with him and the deputy minister, including Comrade Mondli Gungubele when he was a minister, including Comrade Mugungubele when he was a minister in the presidency. What happens? They then decide, instead of engaging us, who constitute a majority in the post office, they go and decide to engage each other when they meet each other in the funerals of comrades in the alliance, and they come back. They have failed. I don't want to dilly-dally check. They have failed to intervene timeously because they ignored all the correspondence that was taken to them. When on the 3rd, when we marched to the treasury in town, we wrote a letter to the minister in Hatfield. We wrote to the treasury. We said the minister must come and accept a memorandum with issues that we highlighted so that they must respond. To this day, Dololo, they are non-responsive. And how do they then, as a shareholder, deal with the matters that affect post office when they are distance away? But interestingly, they're able to have a meeting with the BRP and instruct the BRP head of legal to go and do particular things internally that are unlawful. And I'm saying I can repeat it in their presence. I had hoped the BRPs would be here with us so that we hear. The second issue is that colleagues seem to believe there's two plans, but I seem to understand what happened. There's a plan that has been shared with Labour that we support, but there seems to be another plan that you guys have. Because in terms of the plan that we have, you did not have a phased retrenchment process. You had retrenchment happening, then you would have reskilling and all these turnaround issues. There's nowhere where there's future retrenchments and headcount reduction in terms of the plan. Now, I think the challenge is also because they share certain things with the shareholder and they'll share them internally with us in the employee committee, for example. Now, there is no synergy between what they share with you in confidence in the portfolio committee, unless we see it on TV, and what they actually say to us. Because clearly, there's two things that are happening that are uncomfortable where I sit. is what they've been saying to you, either around numbers and other things. And what our members and workers actually, Comrade Sani, experience, he's a manager. What we experience and workers experience on the ground is totally different. The role of unions between, contrary to popular belief and cognitive dissonance, when there's cognitive dissonance, the truth and reality, when you face it, you can't reconcile yourself in it. There has been more than 7 years, reports are there, where the unions have fought against the retrenchments. Now, this notion that unions were sitting on their back doing nothing to fight against the retrenchment. On the last day, in the CCMA, under facilitation, there was no agreement because there seemed to be this also popular belief that there was agreement between the BRPs and the unions to forge ahead with retrenchment. In the last sitting in the CCMA, under facilitation of the CCMA, we told the BRPs, we reject the notion that you will retrench the workers and you will turn around post office in that way without taking into consideration the skills the workers had, the experience, the know-how, and the suggestions. The BRPs rejected some of the suggestions workers made. An example I will make, which my colleagues, Jackie, I agree with her on it. In the plan, if you read the plan, they say 1 supervisor is to 30 employees. Go where he works. He's a supervisor. They're supervising 2-3 people, but they're supervisors. When you ask BRPs, say, hey, Mren, why is it that today, after retrenching those people there, you still have these people who some are labor leaders, who are supervisors and managers, but this person is supervising 2 people. And in some instances, go to church across the road in Swane Melson. An appointed supervisor appoints an assistant, removes him from operations so that he be supervised while he sits and does absolutely nothing. My colleagues is in operation there. I'm not gossiping him. There. The BRP sitting there. We have told him and the other guy who was with us outside, we have told this thing to them and Mandla in HR to say, you retrench the workers on the basis that 1 is to 30 supervisors. Now, above that, managers, to say, how is it that you remove the workers on the ground, but you increase your managers? Does it make sense? That your head count is dropping from 11,000 to 5,000, but your management structure and the salaries you pay some of them is more. What did they do? They said, well, the BRPs. They forged ahead. Even when we say some of the people that you are retrenching now, operations are going to suffer, they are going to be affected. I'll make an example. You go to a place called Vryburg. It's a village in the northwest. In the town of Vryburg, it services about 26 villages around. As we see it, there's only 4 postmen to deliver in the 26 villages. They don't have transport. Mail is piling up. You say that to the BRPs. That is why, in relation to the 3.8 billion, our articulation of the 3.8 billion has nothing to do with their 10%. It has everything to do with the technologies, retraining, reskilling, making sure that new opportunities for re-employment exist. If you read a letter, because it's important that we present evidence, there's a letter that was issued to all retrenched workers. That letter talks about the issues that I'm saying. Not only SMSs went out, but there was a letter that spoke about the criteria that was used and determined who gets retrenched. Were we happy with that? No, we opposed retrenchment because retrenchment cannot be the only reason of turning post office around. I think we are at that. The issue of progressive, I'm closing the last point. Chair, my issue is very critical. You can throw 10 billion in post office tomorrow. You're not going to turn it around. You don't have the capacity internally and the necessary human capital and infrastructure to turn it around. Now, you can bring the department here, you give them 3.8 billion, and then bailouts my colleagues talk about up to 10 billion. including those of McBans, is because we're throwing money at the problem, Comrade GS. We are not addressing the fundamental issue, which is let's make sure that government does not do business with DHL. I'll make an example. DHL is the German post office. It's an government does not do business with SAPO competitors at the expense of post office. Government says post office don't increase your fees, for example. But post office does not increase fees, but the public goes and is willing to consume excellent services, world-class services offered by the private sector at double the cost. It's because our people want a service. They don't care about the price. But they want excellent services at their doorsteps that are efficient, with a post office that can service a gogo in Hamatlala, a gogo in Ngobo, in Kunu, in Kofimvaba, and in Umhlabo Yalingana. The problem with what we have now is that those are universal service mandate offices. They are not making money. Now, when you look at the balance sheet only, you shut down post offices that don't make money. But you forget that they are a service point that can be enhanced, provide SASSA, provide other government services. An example, my first land bank loan, I got it from Post Bank in 2001. So we can bring back those services, Chair. Thank you.
I believe you. Could I have the next input? Sorry, from SAPO and DIPACO, were there additions? No additions? It's covered. Okay. Yes, CW.
Chair, thank you for your platform. Chair, I'm going to be very short to allow the worker leader from CW also to add if you don't mind. Now, I think mine is just to zoom in on the question that was raised around the understaffing. The understaffing. Because whilst you are trying to modernize the post office, you are trying to sustain the business we already have. So the understaffing is a problem, and Comrade Mzobi would then build on that one. But I want to come to the last one. This department is not helping us. This department is not helping us. We wrote to the department, like our sister unions did, to speak to a minister. Even lately, we just wrote a letter to the minister. They didn't even acknowledge a receipt of it. Now, to undermine a trade unions, to undermine a labor movement in this department, it's not acceptable. Look what the MP has just said. He says, but it's wise to bring us in, to hear outside of the story, while the department shows us the middle finger, sorry for swearing. So, we want to ask Portfolio to maneuver there in that department. The Portfolio Committee takes us serious, but the department takes us for nothing. That must stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I will be. I wanted just to respond to one question, and I need to be brutally honest on this one. I think there was a question that talks about the role from the union. I'm a worker. I think we are having a serious challenge. It's not only about blaming Portfolio Committee. We are not doing enough for workers as unions. We enjoy sitting in meetings, but I don't think we even consider we can count how much have we achieved for workers. It's just unfortunate. Maybe we end up relying more on emails, and we fail to be but in revolutionary, as we're supposed to be. Quality of unions, especially in communication. I think portfolio committee, everyone that is here, the only language that we can understand, that we end up fighting each other more than fighting management to achieve for workers. That is the challenge that we are facing. Maybe one day, one of us will be able to say, can we revive the spirit of unionism? Because I think it's lacking. Now we are not sure what we represent. Because right now, while we are trying to defend the retrenchment, but we will come and say, why it's only this, that it's retrenched. We should have retrenched more than this. That is the kind of language that we talk now as unions. So I think while we are trying to say, let's focus correctly and try to build South Africa and make sure that Ubuntu is back, and we are trying to bring more work for South Africans. How are we going to do that if we are the kind of leadership that we are right now? So I think, to be honest, they can attest, we did not do enough to protect them. We allowed infiltrators. We allowed the fights that are happening within the unions. And then the challenge is these workers. I don't think if I was retrenched, I was going to trust these unions to say they did enough. Even those employees that are at work, they will tell you about the unions that are representing them, that they are totally doing nothing for them. And I agree with them. We have failed workers, and we need to start to look at ourselves. Introspection. If we really want to win these battles, we should start look into ourselves. How best do we fight issues? So I was answering the question of the role of the unions.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, Chair, thank you very much. I know.
The meeting is online, so it's an open meeting. Okay. Okay, hold on. You see this thing we were talking about names of people, ne? When they are not here. I did caution, but I will address it. Please proceed, sir, and we've noted what you said. Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know we have come to that time of the day, but I think we stand by, and I'm talking for the management team. We were never in support of Section 189 from the onset. Prior the BRP coming, we were even on the go with management, the previous management. I'm not going to mention names. What we can say, and we still wait for answers till to date. And this is the question that comes in. I may be thumb-sucking, but I think somewhere around that period, since 2017 till the last retrenchment took place, the VSP was open, the voluntary severance package. And by that time, we were sitting with a headcount plus minus 18,000. And as of maybe yesterday or today, I think we just sitting plus minus 5,900 plus minus. And the reason why we're saying that, as much as our colleagues that are outside now, and the people that are currently inside, it's not business as usual. What is actually done? If you were, I'm using you as an example in this house, if you were around, the workforce around you is ×3 or ×4, or maybe ×10. And that, in a way, puts pressure for all of us. And it has a ripple effect. It takes you to being booking of sick or whatever. And it has ripple effect in terms of communication and giving feedback to other people as well. Even the so-called 3 trenches that was proposed by the BRP, We were not in favor of that. And we tabled it and we said, the VSPs went. They went with full payment the following month. But when it came to Section 189, then came the three trenches. And mind you, it was not actually 3 trenches that time. It was actually tabled to us, it's going to be over 12 months. Then we proposed, can you not shorten the period? And then from 12 months, that is where the 8 months came into power play. It's 3 months, and the last 2 months come into payment as such. But even then too, when it came to the last trench, it was very dicey, and we even cautioned BRP to say, please take note. If you don't pay the last 2 trench, you're going to have visitors outside here. It's plus minus 5,000 around the country. But imagine if you had all of them in close proximity. It would have been a no-go for us as we move out as we speak. I'm just giving an example. Chair, just to come back, in terms of the DG, I drive past that office daily. I haven't been to that office. And for the record, I'm sitting in this position as a management rep for plus minus 9 years. I was not even invited in any of those meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Thina sithanda ukubonga kakhulu ukuthola lethuba lokuthi sizo expressa ngendlela eyenzakile post office. It was hard. I think last week after the meeting no Shelembe, we wanted to ask abantu abaretrenchiwe ama donation only to go to Cape Town siyofuna i-portfolio committee. We even told i-BRP ukuthi we'll try by all means ukuthi siyayithola i-portfolio committee, but with the grace of God sikhonile ukunithola namhlanje, siyabonga kakhulu. And sacela futhi ukuthi maningasilahli nizame ngakho konke kusemandleni wenu ukuthi niyasiza. As we speak, kunabantu, kunabazali abahleli ngaphandle abalinde i-feedback, abavuka ekseni bayozama. We are trying, even imvula ina, ubaba Shelembe uzosibona simile laphayana ku communication ngoba sikhalela imisebenzi yethu. Siyacela portfolio committee ukuthi manisizeni sithole imisebenzi yethu back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I opened, I kept quiet, I said any additions twice. So I do apologize, Baba. We're not. Tree has died? Okay. Even if Niki Mike and his whoop.
Thank you, Chair. I actually don't want to talk much because my comrades have already at least given expression and make a presentation. And I understand that all of us here can understand what is the problem and where is the problem in post office. The problem here is, I want to deal with the problem. Yeah, but let me also highlight it. We are sitting as labor, they're saying the role of the union, there is no role and so on. And I am very much worried, hence my comrades have indicated. The former or our members who are retrenched are saying in this meeting, last week is very much thorny. Last week we met with Baba Shelembe. This thing is very much thorny to all of us here because the Shelembe that is mentioned or that they are talking about him now, and I don't want to be dramatic. I don't know how many series of letters, formal letters that he have got from labor to say, please, can you give us your ear? Can you give us attention? There is a problem here that we want to address with you. But even in a single day or time, he never give us an opportunity to do that. Hence last year, Chair, you see us going to Treasury or marching to Treasury. We march there because we do not find the joy. But I just want to say, the department is actually a barrier. They make sure that there is no relationship between labor and them and the employer. If they've been playing their role and wanted to understand what we want to say to them. Now, we don't want to say BRPs are lying, but everything that you are seeing here from BRPs are just shocking us. We sit with these people, they are saying this thing today. But when they went to portfolio committee, they are saying something. One last part, that is Tony, they are always saying, we agree with labor, we agree with labor, we agree with labor. To give a notion to every person who is out there to think that we are having a relationship with them. Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to address this notion that I can hear flying in this meeting. Thanks.
Okay. You know, you have made DG Selembe do something that he has never done in our meeting. Interject and be excitable. He is not like that, DG Selembe. Never, ever, ever. Please. I just wanted to very quickly translate what Sis Jacqueline had said. That from their side, they just want to thank the portfolio committee, appreciate that the portfolio committee had time to listen to them. What had happened to them was very, very sad. In fact, they had started getting donations, wanting to go to Cape Town to meet with the portfolio committee. By the grace of God, the portfolio committee is now here. An appeal that the portfolio committee should not leave or desert them and please help them. That parents are waiting for feedback on these issues, and even in the rain, they are still going, trying to get their jobs back, and that is the appeal. Okay, honorable members, esteemed colleagues from the department, from labor, and our esteemed colleagues who were retrenched. I think we need to bring this meeting to a close. And as we bring it to a close, maybe having listened to all of the submissions that have been made, I would perhaps want to recommend a way forward. There are a number of things that were raised here. One of them which I echo very much, and it's not an attack on anybody and definitely not an attack on organized labor. But Babu Stole, in fact, wanted to know the role of labor with the employees who are outside. I hold a particular view that unions in our society serve not only for the employed workers, but it should be the working class as a whole. So you have a responsibility beyond those that you have a mandate for in the post office. Because once you do that, or once you don't do that, you then become an elitist union serving only a certain group of people. And in this case, your former comrades in the struggle of the post office. I'm also worried about the level of suspicion that exists between workers, and I'm not just citing here the workers who have joined us in the room. Suspicion that exists between workers and the unions within the organization. We have heard so many times these stories about how people were changed, or how this person from the union would have been offered either a promotion or a managerial job. They came back and workers were sold out, for lack of a better word. And I'm hoping that it's going to be something that the unions perhaps reflect on to say what could have gone wrong. Because it brings me to my next point that says that there's a lot of things that have gone wrong, in this process. And whether we like it or not, Honorable Subrati says the horse has bolted, people have lost their jobs, they've lost their homes. but we have to accept that a lot has gone wrong. And I don't think that sitting behind, processes and seeking to explain things away is going to help, especially the people that Usis Jacqueline was speaking about and representing in this meeting. And I do want to thank you. I do want to thank you for having come here, because perhaps if you were not here, we would not have heard this side of the story. We would have had the problems that are facing the workers who remain, which is extremely, extremely unfortunate. From what you are saying, I think there's a number of things that we must look at as a portfolio committee and act on. And I think the first one, DDG Shelembe, is around a need for an engagement by government, I think, as a facilitator. The one thing that made you excitable now is this issue of the workers, the unions feel that they don't have your ear. If we could have a facilitated session where you bring together organized labor, perhaps the retrenched workers and the BRPs to discuss this, because when we then have a follow-up in our follow-up meeting as a committee, these are the things that we are going to be asking on progress. Because Honorable Shongwe says we are taking our mandate to expand the discussions to include the issues that have come out now. So if we could have a facilitated session there. I think to the committee, honorable members, if you will give consideration to your follow-up questions, and some of these will ask the advisors to put them in writing. The issue around the working conditions, that we know, the issues of the tools of trade, the dilapidated infrastructure, the health and skills and qualification audits, issues of salaries. I think all of those refer to the conditions of workers. The issue of the shutdown of the universal service centers, which we had discussed already with the BRPs. The arbitrary retrenchments. I don't think we've ever gotten a sense of the criteria. Now, colleagues from DIPACU says that there was a criteria. I don't think we've ever interrogated that. But linked to that, we've never understood, based on this criteria, what then happened. Because some of the stories are saying people were retrenched, they were replaced with consultants. The BRPs say to us when we ask earlier, that's not the case. And maybe we just need to get a breakdown, DDG Shelembe, on what then happened to those positions, given the fact that people had lost their jobs. Similarly, this issue of understaffing, but then you have a lot of chiefs and too little Indians. So how did that happen as well? I think we're going to need some guidance there. So there's going to be direct questions. I'm happy you are here, that, so that you can also record them even before we write to you on the issue of I think the pension payouts, just to understand this issue of the retrenchments, whether there were commitments, and if not, why not, of recalling of retrenchments as and when you need workers to undertake some of these things. We couldn't agree with you more on the issue of government business and an intentional support of government of its own. And I think it's part of the discussions that we're having here. I do want to appreciate and really applaud the struggles of the unions. We may be criticizing you as far as the workers who are outside, but as it is often said, the struggle is continuing, and you seem to be at the forefront of that. So we do applaud you for that. On the issue that you actually came here to address, which is the 3.8 billion, I listened to you very, very, very carefully. And I thought, what do these comrades think we are fighting about? I want to quote you. They said, they're retrenching workers. Will that save the post office? No. Then they retrench workers? No. In fact, if you have no revenue generation, you'll never turn around the post office. You said that. Then you said again, there's no capacity internally to turn around SAPO. In fact, you are throwing money at the problem. this is what this portfolio committee has been saying. Do not get confused about the semantics of a plan. I mean, Honorable Souls went to town today on that plan and its amendment or otherwise. Do not get confused about the semantics of this plan or the other plan. Our question has always been to the BRPs. You get this 3.8 billion. Are we not throwing money at the problem? Now, when you want to say that we are wrong for asking that question, you justify it by saying that the workers are suffering. We've been, ne? Then you speak to other issues. You speak to the issues of the need to modernize, the need to do this, the need to do this. We've sat here with the BRPs today and we said, if you, in fact, they came and presented that after we had discussions with them. If you got 1 billion rand, what would you do? They are going to pay 492 to the statutory, 492 million to the statutory creditors, which they may have said to you that it's 2 billion because you use the figure 2 billion. They owe the statutory creditors 492 billion rand. Now, with 1 billion rand, they said that that is what they would do, and then perhaps the rest of it would go into some operational costs, but they did not fully answer that question because I think it was one of the questions. Sorry, I'm looking for. It was one of the questions. So they don't need 3.8 billion. What they then want 3.8 billion for is CAPEX, right? So IT this, logistic this, infrastructure upgrades, and we're saying very good, and then what? So now you've made the buildings beautiful and what, then what, right? What happens? And that has always been our point of contention with the BRPs. And we said to them that we would like a situation that when you exit, at least you are leaving a support that is able to be sustainable, solvent, and liquid. So we want to advocate for the payment of this money, but we don't want in 6 months, 2 years, we are back here, all of us are fighting amongst each other, fighting National Treasury for another bailout. One of the members had asked earlier today about a case study of successful business rescue process. SAA is not 100% perfect, but when the BRPs exited at SAA, they said, shareholder, Mr. Shelembe, here are possible partnerships for you to consider as a shareholder. We are leaving you at this point, and when we leave you, and this is imperative, when we leave you, you have enough cash to sustain your operations at least for 36 months. This is not what these BRPs are saying. They're pushing. They want 3.8 billion. They're pushing. So we've been saying this so many times during the course of this oversight visit is that please trust that this portfolio committee is fighting on your side. I saw your face at the bombshells that Honorable Makubela was dropping there. Which I will not even venture into. I will not even venture into. But the last point that I want to raise, colleagues, Rule 168 of the National Assembly rules privileges any person who appears before a portfolio committee. When we are here, we always say that it then becomes a parliamentary precinct which operates in terms of the National Assembly rules. What that rule says is that when you appear before a portfolio committee, you are privileged that nothing that you say may be used against you, whether in disciplinary proceedings or any other proceedings. I think Honorable Botlani wanted me to emphasize that. I think even before you raised what you raised, my dear colleague, around what you thought was or what is perhaps a victimization. So neither the BRPs nor the department or any other person can use what is said in a sitting of parliament in order to act against whether it's an employee or anybody else. So I want to emphasize that. But I also want to say we must afford an opportunity for people whose names were thrown in here, accusations were made, for them to be able to respond to some of those. Now, I do not know whether it would be my process DDG Shelembe, or it would be your process. I think it's something that we need to look at, because there may be people who are particularly aggrieved by the things that have been said here today, and I would wish that we are able to address them. With that, if honorable members allow, I'm side-eyeing Souls, who always interrupts when I want to close. So with that, honorable members, I'd like us to bring this to a close. I'm going to request that the committee advisors also get, they get the details of the relevant labor reps, as well as Sis Jackie and her team, to ensure that if there's any more information that they want to submit to the portfolio committee ahead of our follow-up meeting with the BRPs, we get that, and then we're able to process it. It's been a long day. With your permission, honorable members, let me declare this meeting adjourned. And once again, thank you very, very much for your input and your participation. Let me also thank the beautiful lady there who held the camera for us for the whole day. Thank the nice gentleman who ran around with the microphones. Everybody who participated in the... Now, Tim Gosi, you are thanked. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.